November 12th. As I call this meeting to order, I welcome you and thank you for being here. We particularly thank Paul Gedge for hosting this meeting and taking care of all the technology that's required to put a complicated meeting like this together. And in as much as we can't meet together physically, I'm really grateful that we have this technology that we can connect together through virtually. So thank you, Paul, for putting this together for us today. This is our Board of Utah State Parks meeting, and we welcome folks from our Department of Natural Resources: Jeff Rasmussen, Dave Harris, Scott Strong, Chris Holler, Susan Zarakariski, Amber Stubbings, and Darren Bird. And on the board, thank you so much, board members, for joining us today. We have Brent Boswell, Alicia Colthorpe, Kevin Christensen, Corey Cram, Russ Stedman, and I'm not seeing Doug Thompson. Doug, are you there? And Natalie, are you there? Okay, so thank you, board members, for being here today. We welcome you. The first item that we have of business is that of the approval of the agenda. And so if you've had a chance to review the agenda, and I'm guessing that everyone's had plenty of time to review it, did anyone have any discussion about that or any changes for Amber? Amber, by the way, thank you so much for putting this meeting together. We appreciate all of your help. It takes a lot of work to get all of these documents together. We appreciate you. And also Kate Croft, who put our minutes together from our last meeting. Any comments or changes for the minutes? Or I'm sorry, not for the minutes. Any changes on the agenda? Let's look at the agenda first. And if there's no changes to the...
I move approval of that agenda.
Okay, thank you, Claudia, for the approval of the agenda. Do we have a second?
Mr. Chairman, this is Corey Cram. I would second that motion.
Thank you, Corey, for the second. Now we'll talk about the minutes. I'm so sorry. If you've all had a chance to review the minutes from August 20th, and does anybody have any discussion items or changes to the minutes from our last meeting, August 20th? If not, I will receive a motion to accept the minutes as they are.
Well, first of all, I really want to appreciate and send recognition to Amber. She's been awesome to work with on those minutes because I did have some questions relative to the rules. So it was just confusing and she did an amazing job on that. So I reviewed them twice, well, 3 times. So I think they're good. I'll move approval.
Thank you, Claudia, for the approval. Do we have a second?
This is Kevin. I'll second.
Thank you, Kevin, for your second on the minutes. The minutes will be approved as delivered to us. Thank you, Amber. Next, our agenda is our recognition of Ryan Starks. Ryan served on the board for, I believe, 6.5 years. Is that right, Ryan? Ryan's actually with us here today, sitting in the building here with us. And we're going to bring him over here so you can see him. And I'm actually going to put on my state-issued mask so that I can be in complete compliance here. Get close. I don't think they can see me. Get close to me here, Ryan. Many of you know Ryan Starks. You've worked with him in economic development or at GoEd or just as a neighbor and friend. And I am just honored today that this good man is sitting by me. He served as my vice chair for, I don't know, a couple of years, wasn't it, Ryan? And I knew I could always call on Ryan to bail me out or cover for me or whatever. I am so appreciative of the way he leads and so appreciative of the good man that he is. You know, I think I could call on him for anything. I have a deck I need to repair this summer. Do you have any time this summer? Maybe you could come help me with my deck.
Sure.
See,
Brent,
look at
Kevin,
that.
Alicia, Amber, would you be willing to help?
One thing I love about about Ryan is that he just serves with all of his heart. And as you know, he's a hard worker. There was a time in his life, and maybe he's still doing this, that, he's a busy father of 4, busy father for husband. He was teaching at this time that I'm thinking of. He was teaching at BYU. He had a busy calling in his church. He also was the economic development director for Heber City, and he was on the board. And I just thought, Ryan, can you take on one more thing? And he's just a man that can do a lot. Someone once said, if you want something done, give it to a busy person. And Ryan is the kind of person that I knew I could give him anything and he would follow through. We've had some great experiences over the last 6.5 years that he served. We witnessed an accident on an ATV, and that was with Jaron Davis, and we stuck by his side, getting him to the hospital and with a broken femur or broken pelvis and all. And so we've had some really great times, and we visited a lot of state parks and just had a lot of great experiences. I'd just like to thank Ryan for his dedicated service and commitment to the State Parks Board, for his just wonderful attitude, positive attitude, and the way he served. So thank you, Ryan. We really appreciate you being here today. And I don't know, any of you board members have anything you'd like to say to Ryan at this time? I'll open the floor for you, and you can have a few comments for this good man.
Don't feel like you have to say anything.
Hey, it's Alicia. I say kudos to everything that you said, and I totally agree. Ryan always goes over the top and helps anyone that's in need. And he definitely helped me as I came on the State Parks Board and kind of like took me under his wing and, taught me all about the board and everyone that is on the board and different things about state parks. And I really look up to Ryan and admire him and excited for him for all of his achievements and what he has in the future. And I'm going to miss serving with him on this board. And I miss him on tourism all the time. And he's just a really great guy. So one of my really close friends, but thank you for all the service you've given to state parks.
Thank you so much, Alicia. And I miss you too. I really do.
And I'm still waiting for my state issued face mask.
I'll put it in the mail today.
Yeah. A cool one, remember? Not one like Bob's got going on. I already got one of those in the mail.
Anyone else have a comment for Ryan? Otherwise, we're going to let him say a few words here.
Just one quick comment. I think that his professionalism, his integrity, his work ethic made him the perfect choice to work in the governor's office. And I think that speaks for what he did on Parks Board, but also for what he's doing at the state level now. So congrats.
Thank you so much, Claudia. Appreciate it.
So this is Corey. This is Corey. I just wanted to echo that, as we really need good people at the governor's office and providing leadership and direction there. And glad to have you there, and just enjoyed our time with you here, Ryan, and wish you the best.
Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it.
Okay, Ryan.
So I won't give some sappy speech, but I just really wanted to say thanks from the bottom of my heart to this group. As I was a graduate student at BYU, I wanted to be everything. People said, well, what do you want to go into? What field? And I said, well, I don't know. I'm interested in healthcare and higher education, but I really love economic development and tourism. And so as it is, doors open, and I'm grateful that Heavenly Father gave me the chance to accept a job that I really loved in the Heber Valley, where I worked for 8 years. And then to work closely with Fred Hayes, who was just such a great mentor and friend, somebody who changed my life. And I remember serving with Fred on the Heber Valley Railroad board. And he called me one day and he said, hey, we are looking for somebody to represent your area to serve on the State Parks Board. Can you think of anybody who would be a good fit? And I said, oh, I don't know. Let me think about it. And I threw out a couple of names, and he's like, okay, well, what about somebody that's really vested in economic development and loves tourism. And then I kind of started to wonder, like, where's he going with this? I was like, well, and then he said, okay, let me get to the point. I want you to serve on the board. Would you be willing to? And it was a wonderful 6.5 years as I took my new job in the governor's office. It sounds silly, but one of the factors that I had to weigh was, do I really want to leave this board? I just feel like for 6.5 years, I had spent so much time working with staff, and I felt like it became part of my identity. And all of my friends and family members would say that I'm the obnoxious person who drives by a state park and says, hey, did you know that this thing or that thing about that state park? Or did you know that I serve on the state parks board? My kids have heard countless state park stories. I love the state parks. I love what they represent. And they really have changed my life. It used to be something that I thought was a nice, thing to have in the state, but now I respect the staff. I respect the processes and just want nothing but the best for the parks. Also, just wanted to say thanks to Jeff. It was wonderful to serve under Fred's tutelage and leadership. And I was also here when Fred passed. In fact, I was with him the night before he passed away at a state parks function. And I think Claudia was there with us too. And then to watch Jeff step up in such a unique way, under such unique circumstances, he was able to bridge that gap and create such a smooth transition. He's the right leader at this time for this organization, and appreciate his leadership. So anyway, thank you, board members. I can't thank you enough for just your goodness and for the wonderful memories that we've shared for the past 6.5 years.
Thank you, Ryan. We have a little gift, a little token of recognition that we'd like to give to you. We understand your favorite state park is Goblin Valley. And so we wanted to give you a picture of Goblin Valley. Isn't that beautiful? Framed in the state of Utah. And also, we want you to keep coming to the state parks. So on the back, you'll see that Amber has very strategically taped an annual pass to the back of this picture. You have to take it off to use it, though. You can't on the back of the picture.
Okay.
So, Ryan,
Thank you so much.
we love you.
Thank you.
And so grateful for your service. And we'd like to present this to you now.
Okay. Thank you very much. This is beautiful. This is so awesome. Thanks.
Mr. Chair, could I have just a quick minute?
Absolutely.
I meant to butt in, but there were so many good things being said. I didn't get an opportunity, but I also wanted to let Ryan know how much we appreciated your service on the board. Just been awesome working with you, and your service as the Economic Development Director with Wasatch County, and your connection with the Heber Valley. And I think that it was especially cool with how well connected you were with that local community and with our employees up there. I know there were many situations where there were discussions or things that were going on that you had a good enough relationship with our employees that they felt comfortable going to you and talking to you about what was really going on. And I just appreciated that kind of connection that you had so that we could get a feel for how are things going on in our state parks. And I think that's really cool that you had that kind of a connection with our staff and with our parks. And it was very helpful as a member of our state parks board. I also, one of the things that I remember about you, Ryan, specifically was when the board was talking about eliminating the day use pass that we had, the disability pass. And it was actually a comment that you made as the meeting was finishing up, and you said, I really want to do something for veterans because that was one of the benefits that was being eliminated with that pass, was a benefit that veterans would have to be able to visit parks if they had a disability for free. And that simple comment that you made led to our Military Appreciation Day that now I think we're in our 5th or 6th year of that annual celebration. And it's because of your thoughts that celebration, that recognition took place. And I think that's awesome. But that's one thing that I'll always remember with you. And Bob, I didn't want to remember the Jaron situation and the little shenanigans that went on up there at Steinecker, but that was a memory that I'll never forget, and a fun experience up until that point. But
It brought us together as a board, and
it definitely brought us together. And just Ryan, it's been a pleasure working with you, and I have a suspicion that our relationship will continue, and that hopefully we'll be able to help each other out as we move forward. And just appreciate your help and support, and just appreciate your time and service on the board for the last 6.5 years. So thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Okay, go Fabulous 44. Go team.
thanks, Ryan.
Thanks.
Good to have you with us.
All right.
Good luck to you.
Thanks.
We'll stay in touch.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you. We've had a few more people join us on this call. I'd like to welcome Natalie Randall from our board. Thank you, Natalie, for being here. We also have Wayne Monroe and Rachel Toker, and also Laurie Backus, who have joined us from the staff, and we appreciate you being here as well. Thank you for coming and joining with us. We're a little ahead of schedule, but we want to stay on schedule with the agenda. At this time, we're at number 3, where Amber, if you can take us through the administrative proposal and the 2021 schedule adoption, that would be
Yes,
great.
sir. Thank you. So basically the proposal is included in your packet, but I will also share my screen. Give me just one second to pull it up. I thought it would be a good idea if we could get the 2021 schedule approved. So I checked out some dates in 2021, close to our normal operating schedule. And in bold, I put recommendations, but it's certainly up to the board which days work best for your schedules for February, May, August, and November.
I've never seen this so organized before, Amber. This is great. A lot of times we'll just look at our calendars and say, hey, does this work? Does that day work? And look at this. You've got this all laid out for us a year in advance. I love it.
Thanks.
So Amber's done a great job of putting these dates together. Any conflicts or concerns about these dates? If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept this schedule for our board meetings for next year.
Is
Mr. Chair.
President's Day something that staff are off for? Is that not a recognized holiday, Amber?
Which holiday?
President's Day, the one in February.
President's Day that's the Monday preceding the proposed date. That's why I did put that in the conflict section in case that's something the board wants to consider. However, it doesn't affect our operating schedule, and like we would still be at work on Thursday.
So the dates that you have bolded are the ones that you recommend. Is that correct?
Yes,
And
sir.
if there's
So,
a conflict or an issue, then the other dates are alternates.
correct.
Just for clarification.
Yeah. The only thing I can see is November 18th. That may be the UAC conference, just since the week before is November 11th and it's Veterans Day. They may not hold it that week and they may move it to the 18th, but that would be the only conflict I would see with that. And I know at least Natalie and I, that would conflict for Natalie and I, and Jeff goes sometimes. So I don't know. It doesn't leave a lot of options on November since Veterans Day. And if we do have a conference on the 18th and Thanksgiving, and maybe we pick Tuesday of that week or something. I'm just throwing that out there.
We can
With
pick
no-
Tuesday, or we can go even earlier into the month, which is November 4th. We could do Tuesday as well. I don't think there are conflicts, but I will double check that.
I like being consistent on the Thursdays. Is November 4th too early in the month? I'm fine with that.
I will have a conflict on the November 4th. I have a conference that week that I'm responsible for, but I'm just one person there.
What are your thoughts, board members? The other dates look okay? It's only November that we're wondering about.
And we can certainly just approve February, May, and August and work out an August or even December date. We're just required to hold within the quarter.
I like that idea. That way we will know with more clarity in August what things look like in November. Are the board members, are you okay with that as well? Approving the first 3 dates?
Yeah, I think UAC normally has their schedule released by August. So that would impact like all tourism directors and economic development directors too. So Kevin and Brent would also be impacted by that date in November.
Okay, so we definitely need to avoid that if at all possible. Okay, I'll take a motion on the first 3 meetings, if those are good for everybody.
Mr. Chairman, this is Corey. I'd make a motion that we approve the proposed board meeting schedule for February, May, and August of 2021 as presented.
Terrific, thank you, Corey. Do we have a second from a board member?
This is Alicia, and I'll second.
Terrific, thank you, Alicia. There you go, Amber. We're set for next year for the first 3 board meetings.
Thank you
Then
so much.
We'll make a decision in August on the November date. Back to you, Amber. Thank you.
That's all I have.
Anything else? Okay. Board members, at this time, we need to take a minute and elect a vice chair, a board vice chair. And Amber, do you want to give us some direction on how we're going to make that happen over this virtual meeting?
Yes. Since we don't have official bylaws, it's a little bit ambiguous for how our secret ballot process that we would typically adhere to in person would work. So I made a workaround. So what we need to do is the board is invited to nominate any members that are willing to consent to becoming the vice chair. For instance, most of you, I think, have more than 6 months left in your term. So I would say if you have longer than a year, you could consent if that's something you're comfortable with. So we will entertain motions for the position. And then as that happens, as each person consents, I will put the name into a form, and then I will comment the link to the form in our chat. And all board members, all voting members should click on that link, select your choice, and then I will announce the results, and then we can entertain a motion to accept the results of the election. Does that make sense?
So at this time, we will, I guess I could take this mask off, huh? We're at least 6 feet apart, so we're good. So at this time, we'll open the floor for nominations for a vice chair for the State Parks Board.
Mr. Chair, I would like to nominate Corey Kam. I think he's been very influential on the board. I think that he's always been good to communicate with the board outside of the board meetings, letting us know what's happening down in his area. He's been very involved with the parks down in his area, so I would place his name in nomination.
Terrific. Thank you, Claudia.
I would
Corey
second
Cram
that motion.
nominated. Yes, Kevin.
I would second that nomination. So
Corey, do you consent to that?
Yes, I would consent. I guess my only reservation is the time that I have left with on the board. I've been here a long time, but I certainly enjoy my time, and I'll be pleased to continue serving as vice chair if that makes sense and if I'm elected. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you. Do we have any other nominations for the vice chair role? Well, I guess we made that really easy today, didn't we? Corey, if you will accept that opportunity, then if everybody is good with that, Do we need to?
So give me just 1 second. I'm trying to keep up.
So Amber, Corey was nominated to be the vice chair, and it was seconded, and no one else had another nomination. So
I don't
at this
believe
point,
we need to go to secret ballot. I think we can accept that nomination.
okay, so we need to get everybody's approval for that. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Do we have any nays? Okay, we don't need to go individually because I can see all your faces and I saw all of you say aye. So Corey, thank you for accepting this opportunity. I personally have been so impressed with you and how you serve on this board, and I'm so excited to have a right and a left arm again.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the board support and staff, and I love this board.
You've done a terrific job, and we're excited to accept you as our new vice chair. Thank you, Corey. At this time, we'll do our board member reports. And let's go ladies first. Claudia, would you please start us off with your board report?
Okay, so COVID has precluded me visiting very many parks since our last meeting, but I did have a chance to go to Snow Canyon. I told you that my son always runs the marathon. It was canceled, but we went. So I have to show you this cute picture. This is my little grandson at Snow Canyon. And strangely, I never knew there were sand dunes there. How many times have I been to that park? Hundreds, and I never realized there was this whole hill of sand dunes. So he loved it, and we loved the little Jenny's hike. I don't know if you can see that as well. Maybe not so good. I don't know how to get it so you can see. There he is, looking through the Jenny's hike. So such a fun place for family. Just had a great experience there, and I think that's probably one of my most favorite parks, just because it's so family oriented. It was hot there in October. It was in the 90, almost 100 degrees. So we hit the sand early in the morning, but not too many there. The park was actually crowded, but sand dunes weren't. So it was really, really fun. And I've been cleaning out drawers, and I found this booklet. It was a State Parks Field Guide Passport edition. I don't know when it was printed, but there is this cute little place in the back where you can have parks stamp that you visited there. So one of my goals will be to try to get to these parks and have somebody at the park initial that I was there. So I thought that would be a way for me to kind of finally get around to all of the parks. So there you go. That's my report. And looking forward to next year and hopefully better opportunity to get around to the parks.
That sounds great, Claudia. Probably need to add a page to that since we've added probably a few state parks to that book since it was printed.
Will do.
What a wonderful goal. Thank you, Claudia. Let's go to Alicia Colthorpe. Alicia?
Hi. I, like Claudia, haven't been able to get out to many parks in the last few months since our last report, but I have been able to at least visit the 3 state parks that are in my area and visit with their managers and kind of fill out how things are going. And what a year, what a crazy year 2020 was. Thank heavens we're almost to the end. 6 more weeks, I think. But it's actually been pretty good for state parks, I think, as far as the business aspect of state parks. They've been super busy. At the field house, they actually, the October here, 2020 was better than October 2019. So for visitation and revenue, that's a positive sign. Red Fleet had their biggest year on books that they've ever had before. And Steinecker is doing well. They're holding their own. their water's down again, but it'll come back in the spring. And they've got some remodels going on, and they've met for the remodel at Red Fleet State Park, and excited for a few changes that are going to happen there. I think it's going to be beneficial. Cole is the assistant manager and acting as the manager currently, and excited about those renovations. So that's going to be awesome for them. And over at Fred Hayes, I was able to visit with Alan a few weeks ago when we were doing some interviews, and things are going well over there as well. And they had a banner year for visitation at the Fred Hayes State Park as well. So things are going well. Just want to give a shout out to the staff for everything that they have done this year to keep the parks open, and putting themselves on the front line when a lot of people were able to go home and just meet by Zoom or work online. They were frontline out with the guests that were coming in, and they did a great job. And I think they've put state parks on the map. Not that it wasn't before, but I think a lot of people that outside recreation was not their first thing on their list to go and do, have now discovered that being outside and being in our state parks in this beautiful state is definitely what brings them peace in their life. And kudos to state park staff for providing those experiences for them. And a lot of people providing the first time in an outdoor recreation setting, first time camping, first time hiking, first time on the water, all due to needing to stay close to home and having those experiences and having time to be able to spend with their family.
Thank you, Alicia. I really appreciate you giving that shout out for the state park staff. You know, that's part of the experience when people can go to a state park and the staff members there are courteous and kind and helpful and friendly. I think that really helps to have an enriched experience, one that is memorable and unforgettable. So thank you for that. All right, let's go to Natalie. Natalie, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Thank you. Yes.
I'll first off start off by mirroring what Alicia just said. From the tourism realm, it has been so hard with COVID, and especially what we've seen in the southeastern corner of the state. So many people are coming to this area, and we have this new type of visitor that's never been to the backcountry or been, like what Alicia said, camping or hiking before. Normally they're taking trips elsewhere. And so just having our state parks at the front line to be that gateway and to be that welcoming face to those visitors has made all the difference. I know specifically in our area where we have the Bears Ears National Monument, having Edge of the Cedars State Park there as this resource for not only how to visit respectfully with the leave no trace principles, but also the visit with respect principles, where you're coming into the area and it's an area that's so densely filled with archaeological sites and with the ancestral Puebloans, and to have that education piece before people are going into the backcountry, I think was huge. But with that being said, I didn't have a lot of time either to get to the other parks. I was able to see Dead Horse State Park, Goosenecks, and then Edge of the Cedars. All of them are experiencing similar things in the area. I think Dead Horse State Park was experiencing even more. It's a unique position in Moab where Arches National Park almost every day now is closing because of the overflow. There's just so many people coming to our national parks. And so as a result, I think Dead Horse State Park is seeing quite an influx of visitors coming in because people don't know where to go. There's nowhere else for them to go. And so they're going to Canyonlands or Dead Horse. And so an interesting, I think it was already growing in numbers, but even more so now with this current year. And then with Gooseneck State Park, an exciting thing, we were able to work with Chris Hansen, and they applied for the IDA International Dark Sky Association designation to be a dark sky park this year, to add to our many other parks in the county and in the area that are dark sky parks. So that's exciting as well to be able to have that recognition, and hopefully the application went in. So hopefully they'll be able to receive that recognition moving forward. And then I had a unique opportunity, just without being able to travel in the state this time, but I did a bike packing trip and ended at the Anasazi State Park. So I had some time to go in there. That was my first time going. into that state park, and great to meet the staff there, and so welcoming. And again, just another showcase to me of how the state parks are like this welcome center into regions, where they're going into visitors going into the Grand Staircase and then into Capitol Reef National Park. To be able to stop there and experiencing that through the staff was a great opportunity. And the food cart outside the Magnolia food truck was awesome to experience as well.
Thank you, Natalie. Great report. Sure appreciate all that you're doing. All right, Brent, can we have a report from you at this time?
Yes, nothing super exciting other than as the UAC is coming up, where each county is supposed to donate a basket with prizes in it. And Moab, sometimes we don't make we make some important products here, but they're not cool for a gift basket. And so we're reaching out to local business for help with that and coming up with some really good things. And I saw Cheston in my contacts, and I thought something from the state park could be cool. And so I contacted him, and when all the other businesses, I'm driving all over the county picking up this stuff, and Cheston had his donation delivered. I found it in my office door about 23 minutes after I asked for it. So just a compliment to Cheston as always, and looking forward to visiting the rest of the parks as the weather warms up.
Terrific. Thank you, Brent. Corey, let's go to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, my travel has been limited this time, but I have spent time and appreciate everything going on with our local state parks here. Sand Hollow continues to have a lot of activities, and I appreciate the efforts to keep the parks open and keep activities going as they're appropriate during COVID. With our parks here in the southwest corner of the state, we've seen just a big change during this COVID epidemic with the users coming, and it seems our out-of-state management with our fees has worked well and been a very positive thing. And I appreciate our park managers with the efforts they're doing. Candace over at Quail Creek is doing great things, and we're looking at some modified concessions and improving things and managing things differently there. John Allred is doing a great job out at Gunlock, and appreciate the management over at Claudia's favorite park as well. And Claudia, you need to go get in the lava tube cave and check that out as well the next time you're there. I carry a cooler in the back of my pickup with water and drinks, and here a while back I stopped and talked to the volunteer who keeps the restrooms clean at Sand Hollow, and just thanked her and her little boy and gave him a drink, and appreciate just staff and the good efforts are taking place, and our volunteers, and we've just got great people out there, and we see that every day. This little buddy and the volunteer cleaning the restrooms they're buddies, my friends now, and I see them all the time and wave, and it's just nice to have good people doing good things, and just appreciate all the efforts.
So Corey, if you'll get rid of the bats in the lava tube, happy to go back in.
The bats won't hurt you. Just don't be afraid. They like little blonde girls, and so yeah, you're anyway.
Thank you, Corey. Doug Thompson needed to drop off the call, so he won't be able to give us a report today. And Russ Stedman's microphone is not working, so we will look for a report from Russ another time. I have not been able to get out and visit the state parks like I would like to. I really appreciate the overview that we all received of all the state parks. I love hearing what's going on in the state parks, the renovations that are happening, new campgrounds, things that are improving the state parks so that the experiences that people will have will be elevated. And I did have a chance to talk with Jeremy Shaw, who's the park manager over at Antelope Island. I see Antelope Island from my house every day, and so my heart goes out to Antelope Island every day when I look out over the Great Salt Lake and see it there. But every time I call Jeremy Shaw, he is so confident, and his leadership is just so awesome, and he just assures me that everything is going great, and I know that it is. And I really appreciated the overview that we received on all the parks, especially Antelope Island with the new campground that's going in there, and just wonderful improvements for our state parks. I think that completes all of the board member reports. So I thank you, board members, for your
Kevin.
efforts.
Kevin.
Oh, Kevin, I'm so sorry. I missed you. Kevin, would you give us your report?
Sure, yeah. So in my area, Yuba and Palisades State Park were pretty busy this year. I like to go out to Yuba to water ski towards the end of the year. The water level was getting pretty low, so I'm hoping for a good water year, good winter. At Palisade, this summer was completely crazy. I don't know before this year if they'd ever had to shut the park down, but it seemed like they had to shut the park down on the weekend quite a few times just because there were so many visitors that were coming. And the one time I was out there on a Saturday that I couldn't get in, there was cars lined up at the gate being turned away, and that's good to see. The people are visiting the park so much. I'm also glad to see that the state is actually doing a lot to fund these parks. Palisade this summer got like 4 new restrooms. So the state's really doing what they can to keep these parks up to date and to let them expand. So I really appreciate that. I really appreciate all the park staff that are working so hard in such a busy time. I know Sean out at the park, out at Palisade, he seems to be doing a great job, and appreciate working with him. That's all I have to say.
Terrific, Kevin. Thank you. Didn't mean to leave you out, buddy. All right. Let's go to our division reports, and we'll first of all hear from Scott Strong, Deputy Director. Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the time that we have this morning. It would be nice to meet in person, but maybe that'll happen sometime in the close future. I would like to also mention my appreciation for Ryan and his service. We got a chance to talk this morning for a few minutes and just reaffirmed what a great person he is. And I think, like many of you said, how giving he is of his time and his talents, which is just fabulous for all of us. And like Jeff, I look forward to continuing our relationship and working with Ryan, like many of you have also said. So thanks for that. And then thanks for your board reports. It's always fun to hear other people having experiences in our parks. I often get out into the parks and have a great time. And I'll have to say, Claudia, I have never seen a bat in the lava tubes, never once. And I was just there like a month or 2 ago. So I think you're safe, but that's just my experience. So thanks to all the board members. And I'm excited for Corey and this new opportunity for him. You're all spectacular leaders, and I know Corey will fill that role very well. So thank you.
Well,
let me
I
jump
do have a blonde granddaughter who did see bats down in the lava tubes. So just to set the record straight, they're there.
You know, Claudia, maybe I mistake a hummingbird for a bat. So that could be it too. Rainbows and butterflies. That's what I like. Anyway, as far as my board report goes, I have about 5 or 6 things I'd like to cover. They're pretty quick. But the first one has to do with the legislative session that's upcoming. And I know Jeff is going to go into much more detail about what's going on with the upcoming session. But one of the things that I did want to mention to the board is that we are asking the governor's office to support an increase of our annual pass from $150 to $250. And mostly primarily that change would be for out-of-state visitors. I think Corey hit the nail on the head when he talked about Sand Hollow State Park and the number of out-of-town, out-of-state visitors that we're having in that area and the impact that it's having on our parks. And this change would greatly help that. The second change that we're also talking about with the fees is an increase of entrance fees from $25 to $40. And it's essentially for the same exact thing, to help recover some of the costs from the impacts that we're seeing from these out-of-state folks. And This isn't an action item, it's more for your information, but are there any questions or concerns with this proposal that we've asked of the governor's office?
Well, Scott, for clarification, is this for all, even in resident as well as non-resident, or is it just non-resident?
That we don't have an out-of-state versus in-state resident fee. So it would just increase our annual pass fee and our entrance fee. And essentially what it would do is we would only apply that to out-of-state visitors. But it would honestly, it would give us the leniency to increase all fees in the future. Any other questions or comments?
At one time, I think Alicia brought it up, something about local in the area having some kind of a special, I don't remember the discussion exactly, but is that still on the table, something for locals so that they can do something more local and don't have to take the big hit on the price increase?
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Scott.
No, I want to hear what you have to say, Alicia.
I was just going to say, yeah, I mean, my heartburn over it is that in the southern part of the state, you can access state parks with pretty close to full benefits 12 months out of the year. But then you get into some of, the colder parts of the state, and we just don't have access like that. And so to increase that, to double or whatever we're looking at, it's kind of a lot for just a 3-month period. And that's what I had brought up before. I do like the idea of charging out-of-state visitors more, just because they're not paying the taxes that we already are as residents. And I do think that they fill up our state parks and make it hard for our locals to be able to have that experience.
Yeah. So they're kind of two different topics. And I want to go back to the question that you brought up, Claudia, and then also what you addressed, Alicia, with the kind of the locals park pass. Yes, we are continuing to do that. We're going to move forward with that in the near future. And we'll do that where, for instance, in the Vernal area, we've got 3 parks that are within, 15 miles probably. So there's an opportunity for the park managers to get together in that area and have not only just a locals specific park pass, but also there could be a cluster or kind of a grouping of parks that could get together and say, hey, we want to support the locals, and we as administration definitely see the value in getting and engaging the local community in our parks. So the park managers can either do it by themselves, or they can get with the other park managers in the area and create a park pass that is at a price point more like what you're talking about, Alicia. And I think that really helps solve the issue. This is something that we've talked about for years and years. One of Fred's major concerns with this was, what happens to that local park visitor who comes every night after work, goes fishing, doesn't use or have a great impact on the facilities, but now we're going to, greatly increase, or not greatly, but we're going to increase the fee that individual has, yet they have little impact on the park. So we have been sensitive and address that issue too, and we'll continue to follow through with the local pass as well as kind of the cluster pass too.
Has there been any discussion, Scott, on creating 2 different tracks, like a non-resident pass specific with a fee and then resident pass that is different?
There have been discussions on that. One of the things that we've tried really hard to do over the last several years is to reduce the number of fees that we have on our fee schedule. So within the fee schedule, for instance, we don't have an out-of-state versus in-state fee. We don't have a regular versus senior fee. Those just fall under the entrance fees or the annual pass fee. So essentially, instead of having somebody else impose those fees on us, we do it as an administrative staff where we set those fees rather than increasing the number of fees as well as losing some control over how those fees are set. When I started with state parks almost 10 years ago, we had, I don't know, like 2,000 fees. Today, we have fewer than 100 fees. And it's in part because we've done things like this and not made the fees so specific. But it is, again, we can address it and we can look at it.
This is Corey. Do we have a good handle on the number of out-of-state users who are repeat visitors? I guess, like particularly at Sand Hollow, it seems like most of these folks are mostly one-time visitors and not the typical type of users who are coming every week or every day for fishing or boating. I just and talking to our managers here, it just seems like maybe like an out-of-state annual pass may not be warranted, but I just don't know if there's any more information on that.
There are two things on that, Corey. We don't collect information on day use visitors, but we do have in-depth information on campers. So I can tell the demographics of where our camping visitors are coming from, but not the day use visitors. I will say that especially in the western part, southwestern part of the state, that we have sold several of those out-of-state annual passes at $150, and people do not balk at that price. And you're in the area and you see those people, but the trends that I'm looking at is that we've been discovered by California and Nevada residents, and I think they're going to keep coming and they're going to come more often, but that's just been my experience.
Thank you. I would agree, and that's the impression I get from our local park managers is that, yeah, with COVID, we've been discovered, and it's just our lifestyle has changed down here, and just then when we thought we were busy and overrun, now it's even more. But I think we're going to see a different use pattern because of the people who have found us when their own backyard was shut down.
Yeah, and I'll just echo what Alicia said. I just don't want to see us price out our local tax-paying citizens in the state, those with families. That is the only place families can really go and recreate anymore. So just so there's some leeway for locals that they can still love the parks and not be priced out.
You're exactly right, Claudia. We are very conscious of all of the visitors that come to our state parks, and we know that some of those visitors are very price sensitive. But we also, if I can just be direct, we operate like a business and we have to cover our costs. So when we look at price, it is a factor both for our visitor as well as for the way that we run our park system and have been asked to run our park system by the legislature. So we're definitely different than regular government, and taxpayers don't pay most of our operating costs. So we've got to collect that somewhere and somehow. And again, we feel like we've created this locals pass that will solve many of these issues. And when you compare it to other recreation opportunities, whether that's, going to a movie, which not many people do anymore, or even when you compare it to other opportunities for outdoor recreation, we are very affordable when you look at those comparisons. And there's just no question about that. Wayne reminded me of a project that I've been working on also, back to your question, Corey, about collecting data on our park visitors and deciding where they're coming from and how often they stay. But I've been working with some partners down in Southern Utah they're from Southern Utah University, actually, who have worked on an app for Zion, and they collect license plate information. They have license plate readers and things like that. It doesn't store the license plate number, but what it does is it keeps track of when they came into the park and when that license plate left, as well as it can tell us what state the plate is from. So we've created a pilot program at Snow Canyon State Park to do that, and I'm super excited about both the technology that we have in place to better collect fees, as well as get a better grasp on our visitor and how they use the park, where they go within the park, how long they stay in the park, all those things. So this new technology is really going to be beneficial for in using how we determine where our customers are coming and what they want, all those sort of things. And I'm super excited about that data piece of it. So, any other questions about fees? Okay, I'm going to move on. If you do have a question, you can always ask me either later today or I'm always available for your questions. To go along with that, there's a correlation between our out-of-state visitors and the impact that it's had on our parks and our park staff. But I just wanted to give you some numbers as far as what has happened with the operating profit and loss numbers. So when we compare fiscal year 19 to fiscal year 20, which was completed in honestly at the end of July, we're up 8.84%. So almost 9% increase in our operating profit throughout the division. Now within that, when I drill down even deeper and look at what's currently happening, it's very interesting to look at 4 of our parks have already hit $1 million or more in operating profit in the first 3 months of this current fiscal year, which is unheard of. It's just incredible, but it also speaks to what we're seeing. One of those parks is in Corey's area, and the other 3 parks are in the northern region. But it's just incredible how many people are coming and visiting our state park and coming again. And talk about affordability. They love it. And I talked to a man the other day, and he just said, you should charge 3 or 4 times as much for this annual pass because of the number of times I use it and the value I get from it. So anyway, people are coming, they're spending time in state parks, and they're spending their money, and they're happy to do it at state parks. And this is shown by the correlation that we're seeing with these parks and the amount of quite honestly, again, the revenue that they're generating, which is just spectacular. And, I talk about the numbers and how neat they are, but it really does speak to the work that our staff does and the great people that we have out in the field, as well as our region staff and the encouragement and support that they give, as well as from the Salt Lake office. We try our best to support staff and look for ways that we can help out or look for problem areas that we can add more resources to. So it's not just about the numbers, but it is a lot about the money and how we use the money. And Jeff's going to talk, I think, more about what plans we have for using the money that we're making to reinvest back in state parks. So the next topic I wanted to go over is just our marketing program. Jeff mentioned at the last board meeting that we've been changing our perspective as far as how we market our parks. Before, we were trying to do the traditional promoting parks, get people to come to parks. And now we've made a shift to let's tell the park story and let's talk about the benefit that state parks brings to local communities and to the state's total economy. And so we've done that, and Eugene and Devin are the ones that are working on this project. They've gone to Bear Lake State Park, Antelope Island State Park, and Coral Pink State Park, and have started projects there. We have facilities like an entrance lane at Antelope Island State Park that they were able to capture the engineer or talk to the engineer, the contractor, local community leaders, shop owners, visitors at the park, and they'll take all that information and they're going to kind of crop it or filter it down to 2 minutes or less of telling the story of that project and how it benefits not only the visitor, but also the local economy and the local community. So we're super excited about that and hopeful to have one of those projects completed by the legislative session so we can highlight one of those projects. The next thing I want to just briefly touch on is that we've had a couple of internal audits from the Department of Natural Resources. They've been very helpful. One had to do with our construction manager and the misappropriation of funds there. I can't go into a lot of details with that one, but I can say that the Attorney General's office is working on that. They're completing their investigation and will probably go into the criminal prosecution side of things fairly soon. But again, that's an open investigation and we can't talk too much more about it, but that is moving forward and we hope to have it resolved quickly. And we're very appreciative of the AG's office and the staff there. They've worked with us very well and are very thorough in what they do. The auditors upstairs also followed up on a state purchasing audit and have given us several suggestions and recommendations of ways that we can improve. And we're taking those with quite a bit of excitement and we'll follow through and make sure that those recommendations are followed and we make some improvements. They congratulated us on many of the things that we have done and are doing. And then again, just gave us some ideas of ways that we could reassure a few things that we're doing. And we're looking forward to implementing those ideas. The next topic I wanted to cover is concessions and just briefly talk about Mike Long and the great things that he's doing with our concession program, including working on a very technical agreement and contract that could last for up to 75 years. So that's a huge contract and we're in the middle of negotiating that and just appreciate his work and the park managers and program managers that have worked with him on many concession agreements. And then lastly, kind of an exciting thing, I was able to talk to some of the administrators at the BOR about our reclamation parks, and they were able to find additional money for Echo State Park from a project that we're completing at Willard Bay State Park. What we do with those BOR projects is that we have a 50-50 match kind of partnership with the money. So when we build a campground or any facility at a BOR park, they provide half of the money and then we provide the remaining money. And through some of their creativity, they were able to look at a project that we had done essentially by ourselves without a match at Willard Bay State Park and say, hey, we can use that money as matching money for Echo State Park, which was just fabulous. And it speaks to the great partners that we have. And that extends to the Water Conservancy districts. You know, I always think of Quail Creek State Park and Sand Hollow State Park and the help that we get from Corey and the folks down there, as well as our good partners with the BOR and BLM and Forest Service too. But just really appreciate their creativity at the BOR and helping us move that Echo project forward. And that is my report, Mr. Chairman.
That's terrific, Scott. Thank you so much. You know, I really get excited when we're able to tell the story about all the great things that are happening in the state parks. I think the public loves to hear that. They love to see all these improvements and how that's going to benefit them. And so I'm really excited about what our marketing team is doing to make that more front and center to the public. All right, Dave Harris. Yes.
I'm sorry. I wanted
Go ahead.
in the minutes, Scott, we talked about possible CARES money. And I know that CARES money had to be spent by the end of December. Did state parks get any CARES money? Were you able to secure any and do anything with that?
We were able to get a few small grants at Edge of the Cedars State Park, and they did. So they received that money and they have spent that money. we were hoping to get larger amounts of money, and that just didn't fall through. But we have a few smaller grants.
All right. Thank you, folks. Thanks, Claudia, for that question, and Scott for that answer. Let's go to the operations report from Dave Harris. Dave?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to the entire board. Good to see you all, even if it's on a small computer screen. And it's great to hear all your reports and all the things that are happening in your neck of the woods. For the operations report, I just threw a few things together here. There's thanks to the region managers for putting those board reports together that are in your report. And I hope you all get a chance to look at those. They're adding some great pictures and great descriptions of what's going on in each park individually. So I looked through that and was going to pick out a few things, but thought, well, you're probably going to see that. So I'm going to try to hit some items that you might not see in your board packet. But this fall, I had great opportunities to visit some of our southern parks, both for work and pleasure, and visiting family and things in that part of the state. But I got a chance to camp at Escalante a couple times this summer and explore around that area. It's just awesome, and the park looks great. And getting a new visitor center there, and I've seen a couple stages of that construction, and it looks like it's going well. And I got a chance also to visit Coral Pink and stay at Steinecker a couple nights when I was in the area doing some interviews. So both those parks look great, and a lot of good things going on there as well. Our staff has been doing an awesome job through this whole COVID incident, whatever you want to call it. They've really stepped up to the plate. A few of you have mentioned that, and thanks for recognizing the great things that our parks are doing. I was thinking, the other day we're constantly dealing with events and getting questions on events we're holding in our parks, and our park managers haven't been, shying away from events. They've been working with the local communities and with event organizers to do what they can to have the events that are still appropriate and that fit within the local guidelines. So we're following all the state guidelines and the CDC guidelines, and working with our local health departments to make sure that they're okay with any events that we're having. And it's been interesting to see. I remember going to school in Michigan, rural area. We were always excited to see, hey, it's going to snow. It's going to be a snow day. We don't have to go to school. But that's just the opposite of what our parks are doing. They're saying, hey, we've got this big issue going on. What can we still do to host the public? What can we still do to have these events and keep people safe and our staff safe? So hats off to all our parks for working through those tough issues. And it's been changing a lot. There's, new protocols and new things to follow, and they've all been really great to make sure that those are happening. Until recently, we've had very few incidents among our staff of reported COVID cases or quarantines or whatever. But over the last month, as the numbers have gone up in Utah, of course, we've had a few more incidents with our park staff. But as far as I'm still aware, and a lot of it's health information, and we don't get the whole story sometimes, but we haven't had anybody that has contacted COVID through work, so through their workplace. And we haven't heard of any visitors coming to our parks that have been exposed at our park. So we're excited about that. And we continually, encourage our staff to remain vigilant in protecting themselves and the visitors. So hats off to all of our staff for doing that. As been mentioned, things are still busy around the state and in our parks. We've had some really successful rescues in the last couple of weeks. I wanted to mention up at Bear Lake, Richard Drosbeck was able to rescue 2 fishermen from a swamp boat. I think they said the water temperature was 48 degrees, and they'd been in the water almost an hour. So definitely 2 life saves there. So congratulations to Richard up at Bear Lake. And then others that go out on the water this time of year are duck hunters, and a lot of times they're not very well prepared. But Darren Tucker on Utah Lake, I think last weekend, was able to rescue 2 duck hunters at night who had failed to report back home, and they were found by a helicopter, and then we were able to go out in the water and rescue them. So hats off to Darren Tucker. And then Jeff Arbon from the Southeast region was able to rescue a woman that had fallen off of a mountain bike and injured herself. And she was in an area where nobody could get, but he has a off-highway motorcycle and was able to go where nobody else could go and rescue the woman and bring her back to a decent road where the ambulance met her to take care of her issues. So hats off to Jeff Arbon for that. Some of the other things that have been going on, I think I mentioned at the last board meeting that we had kind of combined our law enforcement, boating, and OHV programs. That seems to be working really well. They're finding efficiencies and sharing staffs. And there's better coordination on program-related issues between the boating, OHV, which are a big component of their program, is law enforcement. And so there's better coordination there with the law enforcement program. We worked on a standardized goal for all law enforcement officers to try to meet the goals of the boating and OHV programs. And let's see, we're also working hard to keep positions filled. We've had a number of retirements, resignations, promotions, and it seems like we can't get beyond like 10 to 14 people vacancies lower than that. So right now we've got 12 vacancies. 3 of those are law enforcement and 9 or non-law enforcement positions. And additionally, right now we have 4 rangers in post, and we have 5 more that are going to start in January. I looked at all of our vacancies and our staffing a little while ago, and over a third of our staff have less than 5 years. So we've got a really young division and a lot of people with a lot of good potential. So we're excited about that. And special thanks to Alicia for helping with filling the Steinecker Red Fleet manager position. We did hire, I don't know if Alicia's even heard this yet, but we did hire Amanda from Alabama. She's a park manager in Alabama. She has some great experience with all aspects of park management, and she's very passionate about being a state park employee. So thank you for your help there, Alicia. And looks like you'll have somebody really good to work with in the future there for those parks. And we have at least 2 key positions that are retiring by the end of the year. I don't know if anybody's heard this, but Eugene will be retiring, and that'll be big shoes to fill. And then also Randy Thomas, who's our shop supervisor for the boat and OHV shop out at our main office, will be retiring. He's probably got the most knowledge of all aspects of recreational equipment repair, and those are going to be huge shoes to fill. It's kind of hard with the COVID situation. We don't have retirement parties or anything like that anymore. So if you do see any of these folks, please do thank them for all their years of service. I think Eugene has over 30 and Randy has like 25 years. So, over 50 years of institutional knowledge leaving right there. Additionally, we're hiring 2 new positions, which we're adding 2 positions to the division to help with staffing in areas where we've noted probably the biggest stress levels and increases in visitation. And one of those is a new position is going to be at Steinecker Red Fleet. We'll be adding 1 law enforcement park ranger there, and they'll help with managing and the parks and in that area, the OHV and boating issues. And then also we're going to hire a new position in the Southwest region, which will help cover the very busy Washington County parks. That position will be exclusively dedicated to helping fill in the voids at the 4 parks down there. So we're excited about that. Other things that are being worked on, working with Amber and Tammy, who's in the law enforcement section, to get all of our division guidelines updated and put into an electronic format that all division employees can review. Our guidelines haven't had a good review and update in over 10 years, so it's a good opportunity to work on that now. And I don't know how many of you have seen any of our new state park signs. The big monument sign, there's one at Fred Hayes State Park. I think Deer Creek, Rockport, all the Wasatch parks have the signs now, the Jordan River OHV Park. So anyway, we've done 7 around the state, mostly in the North region, and we have funding for 15 more that'll mostly go in the Southeast and the Southwest regions. So we're excited about that, and we're working with Mike Long, our contract manager, and Monica, our graphic designer, to work on contracts to get those going. And also working with a human resource office to reclassify our folks that work in the mechanic shop and our journey crew maintenance folks. It's been a long process. Our local department, human resource office, is on board with that. Now we're working with the state Department of Human Resource Management to get those new classifications worked on. So hopefully, it's already taken a couple months, but it still might take another month or two. So we're working hard through that. And I wanted to finish with a great compliment that we had recently from a retired California state park manager that had visited our state parks. I just want to read it to you because it's really a great comment. It says, "Good morning. I'm writing to express my thanks to Utah State Parks for having such well-managed parks. I'm a retired park manager from California, and I can tell you about the sorry state of affairs in our state parks. By sharp contrast, Utah does a great job, including the reservation staff, gate attendants, and maintenance staff. This also demonstrates good leadership and management. I've traveled to more than 200 parks in the U.S. I have to say that Kodachrome Basin is amongst the best managed and most beautiful parks I visited. I also enjoy Goblin Valley and Goosenecks. While I didn't have time to visit, others I met have had great things to say about Coral Pink Sand Dunes and Escalante. I only wish the National Park Service could learn from your model of excellence. I did not enjoy my visits to Cedar Breaks, Bryce, Zion, and the Grand Canyon for many different reasons that I will convey to them. Another bright spot was the BLM at Escalante, Staircase, and Vermilion Cliffs. I look forward to seeing other state parks on future travels." So I thought that was a great comment that came in, and wanted to pass that on. And that concludes my report, unless anybody has any questions.
Do we have any questions?
This is Corey. I'd just like to make a comment. You know, years ago, before I joined the board, I'd heard a lot of negative things about our state parks, law enforcement, things from legislators, things from others. And as I've been on the board and had more contact with our state parks, I've just really grown to appreciate our law enforcement people and the great things they're doing, the challenges they face. I appreciate you giving us reports on some of these incidents that take place with, you know, we've had fatalities, but on the other hand, we've had life-saving experiences. And I just appreciate the training that our law enforcement folks have, our rangers, and the challenges that they face are incredible. They have great attitudes, and I appreciate the people we have on the ground and your efforts to keep those positions filled. Anyway, just want to recognize those folks, and as there's things that take place with incidents that take place and good things that happen, I think we ought to try to highlight those. I think it's great for the board to hear about those, and for the public to hear about the good things that are happening, and our folks on the ground and the great things that they do. But anyway, Dave, appreciate your folks, you and your staff. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Corey. Any other comments or questions from the board? That is just a tremendous tribute to our state parks. To be able to receive a comment like that from a former California State Parks manager, that is just a tremendous tribute from one who knows what good operations look like. So congratulations, Dave. You are doing a great job, and you've got a lot on your plate, and we thank you for all that you're doing. All right, we'll turn the time over to Jeff, our Director of State Parks, for his director's report. Jeff?
Good morning. Great to see you all. Like several of you have mentioned, I can't tell you how much I'm looking forward to all sitting around the same table. And meeting at some of the awesome locations that we've met in the past, although I never want to experience another Steinecker incident. Nothing against UNT County, but I don't know that I want to do another ATV tour. There'll be rules if we do that again. Anyway, great to see you all. Good morning. I just had a few things to share. Just wanted to give you an update on some construction projects that are going on. There's a lot of significant things going on throughout our state park system. Kevin, you mentioned the new restrooms going in at Palisades State Park. That's one of many efforts that we're making in improving our state parks all across our system. We put in a request for an appropriation, an ongoing appropriation 2 or 3 sessions ago to address our restrooms. And it sounds boring, but actually restrooms are very important in our state parks. And for any that have worked in state parks or at any recreation facility, it's usually the first question that people ask when they come to a park, and a very important stop for our visitors. But we got an ongoing appropriation to address that need and replace restrooms throughout the state and add restrooms as our visitation grows. And that was just one of many appropriations that comes from our restricted bank account that is paid for with the fees that our visitors pay. And a huge improvement to our state park system, but I just wanted to make a point with that. So some of the other improvements that we're making progress with from our bank account, from our fee revenue that are moving along. And this is just a taste of some of the projects that are moving along, because there's too many to talk about this morning. Bear Lake State Park on the east side, it's making significant progress. So we've talked in many of the recent meetings about the need to address the tremendous demand from visitors coming to our state parks, and we have more people than we can accommodate. But we have state parks that have room to expand. We just need to make that investment and make it happen. Bear Lake is one of those state parks that has room to expand. All along the east side, we've got 5 or 6 locations where we can do that. And this one is on the very north end. You can't get any far further north in Utah. It's right on the Idaho border at North Eden. And this is a project that's primarily a day use expansion project where we're improving the beach area, taking a formerly overgrown willow and tamarack infested sandy area and clearing it out, adding a whole bunch of parking and restrooms. And it's going to be an absolutely beautiful beach area next year. Can't wait to open the gates, and hopefully COVID will be a distant memory. I know that may not be realistic, but I'm still going to cross my fingers that that'll happen, and we'll be able to have a ribbon cutting and a little celebration ceremony for that. But regardless, it'll be open and ready to go next summer. Antelope Island, we've added a extra entrance lane at that park. A huge need. We've been backing traffic up into Syracuse City for years, and that extra lane is going to make a tremendous difference. On that lane, we'll have an automated gate with an electronic scanner for annual passes and the ability to accept credit cards. If that isn't already installed, it's coming soon. Also at Antelope Island, we have our big campground project. It's a $5 million project, and that campground project just started this fall, and the progress has been significant. It's already been roughed in. It's been prepped for paving, and there's been significant progress. They were hoping to get the paving in before winter hit. This recent storm kind of caught them by surprise, so I don't know that they're going to make that deadline, but we're very encouraged with the progress that they're making on that one. And that one should be open by early next summer. At Escalante State Park, we have a new entrance station and visitor center going in, and that one should be completed. It's also making significant progress. I just saw a picture of it a couple days ago, and it's all framed and looking really good. Should be completed by early 2021. Projects that are in design that will be ramping up early next year, a campground at Gunlock State Park, a major campground expansion at Wasatch Mountain. The Wasatch Mountain Campground will be in the Soldier Hollow area, near the Olympic venue site, also near the chalet area. It's a spectacular site. It's going to be a beautiful location. We're super excited about that one. And then the other one in design is Goblin Valley in the expansion area that was a result of the Emery County Lands Bill that's adjacent to our existing park. So those are really cool ones. And then just for future, I think I mentioned last time we'll be asking for over $15 million in additional appropriation from our restricted account for more of these expansion and improvement projects. And the details of that really aren't public at this point. It's still in the process of getting approval from the governor's office, but we're hopeful that we'll get that approval soon, and I'll share that with you as soon as we can. But regardless, it'll be more exciting things that I know our visitors will love, and not only that, but it will continue to build our business and build our bank account so that we can do more investing in our state park system. So lots of exciting construction, development, and improvement projects going on throughout the state. I spoke with most all of you before this meeting, just asking for some ideas of what you would like to cover during the meeting. And at least a couple of you mentioned that you like to hear about what we're doing to recognize employees. And I really appreciate that, because through the years and just talking with employees about what's important and what it takes to make sure that there's good morale and that they enjoy their jobs. Recognition is so important. So I'll just go through a few things that we've been doing. This certainly isn't an all-inclusive list, but just as of recently, some of the things that we've been doing. Several years ago, we rolled out an incentive award program that was based on improving profitability throughout the state park system. This was an idea that Scott had early on when we changed our focus to operating our agency like a business. And the beauty of what it does is it gets our employees focusing on reducing expenses and increasing revenue. So improving overall profitability for the park or system that they're overseeing. And when they do that, and when we set it up, it was all about improving it by at least a penny or more. Improvement just means making a positive improvement. When that happens for that park or unit, each full-time employee within that unit gets, there's a $750 allocation that goes for each full-time employee within that unit. That doesn't necessarily mean that each employee within that unit gets $750, but what it does mean is that the manager over that unit gets to distribute the sum total of that money to the employees who had the most influence on improving profitability. So what we love about this system is it rewards the employees for their efforts and puts it where it's most deserving, and it drives home the importance of focusing on profitability for our parks. And it's been very, very successful. An even bigger process that we've added just over the last couple of years is our salary improvement plan. And this one is especially important this year, where state employees didn't get an increase for a number of reasons. This was a plan that Fred was working on before he passed away, and it was about setting up goals with our supervisors, setting up goals with their employees that focused on building our business, improving customer service, and taking care of our facilities. So any or all of those three things. And if the employee is to complete those goals, then they're eligible for a 3% salary increase. This is huge for state government and something that most agencies aren't able to do. We haven't been able to tally up all the numbers yet, but we're getting close to figuring out who's qualified for that. And there's a number of other things that employees need to do to be able to qualify for this. They need to have all their training done. They need to stay out of trouble during the evaluation system. There's a number of guidelines within the system, but last year I believe that about 75% of our employees qualified for this raise, and I'm assuming that there'll be about the same amount of number of employees this year. So we're excited about that. What else? The other one that we just rolled out, and I'm a little embarrassed to even mention this, but we do employee awards every year, incentive awards. And this year we were way late in doing our 2019 employee incentive awards. And I hate to blame anything on COVID because everything bad seems to get blamed on COVID. But unfortunately, for a number of reasons, this one was majorly delayed in COVID. And the reason it was delayed is because there's a financial there's an incentive award, a financial award tied to these awards, and that had to be delayed because of the budget uncertainties early in the year. Regardless, we finally got the thumbs up later in the year. We were able to make it happen. And what it basically means in the end is we were able to give these awards to 18 of our division employees. So I'll just read through the award titles really quick. And I was going to have Amber send the write-ups to you so that you, when you have a few minutes, you can just look at the employees who received the awards and what their accomplishments were. And we've got pictures of the employees, but I'm very proud of what they did. They all had significant accomplishments and just really cool things. So in the division category, we have a manager of the year, an employee of the year, a division leadership, an innovator, a customer service, a boating professional, and then a director's choice. All of these awards are tied to those three guiding principles for our agency about building the business, taking care of our customers, taking care of our facilities. And the employees that we selected for these awards, and really, I shouldn't say that we selected for these awards. These awards came from nominations from their peers from throughout our agency. And we had a pile to select through, and that's always a hard process too, because there's so many good things that happen throughout the year. But anyway, a very impressive list, a lot of great accomplishments, and I'm so proud of our employees. And then lastly, we also reserve a little bit of money to do some additional salary increases for employees that just go above and beyond with exceptional performance outside of these other categories. I believe in recognizing employees for their good work. And I always like to say that, you know, all the great things that are happening in our state parks, they don't just happen. They happen because of the good people that are working in our state parks. And it's not just a job. Our employees are doing their job because they want to be here. And that's what I love about this agency. Our employees love what they do. This is generally what they've wanted to do for their whole life. It's kind of the fulfillment of a dream. And when you're in that situation, you're just going to do a good job and you're going to be good at it. And it's going to show in the work that you do. It's going to show in the customer service that you provide. And what I love about these programs, these incentive award programs, these salary increases, is it's just one way in recognizing those efforts. It's one way in driving home the importance of good customer service in facility care, in building our business. And employee recognition is so important. And we have so many good employees. There's no end to the good work that they do. Anyway, hats off to our employees. They're awesome. Okay, just a couple other things on a not so fun note. Had some bad news with Kate. Kate Croft is leaving our agency. Got got a call from her a couple days ago. She's accepted a job with Department of Human Services as their public information officer. When she texted me on Monday that, hey, give me a call after the conference call, we need to chat, I just had a suspicion that it was probably not going to be a super fun chat, and my suspicions were right. While I'm happy for her, I hate to see her leave this agency. In her short time, she definitely left her mark, made some significant changes with a number of things, and just wanted to say that we really appreciate her work and the things that she was able to do in the short time that she was here. Her last day is tomorrow. Wish you were all here to wish her well, but anyway, thanks to Kate, and I know that she'll do well in her future assignment, and it's a big assignment, and she'll excel at it just like she did here. So with planning, it's going to be back to the drawing board again. Unfortunately, we've had to start over a few times with planning, and that's been frustrating, but it's definitely one of our priorities, and we'll be jumping back on that again next week. For the upcoming session, just really quick, I think as far as what I see, I think we're going to see a lot more of the same kind of proposals, new ideas for new state parks. I've heard rumors of 2 or 3 new state monuments. I think the challenge is going to be in making sure that they're appropriate and in making sure that they're financially self-sufficient. So we'll see what happens with that. I still believe that there's going to be quite a bit of interest in investing in outdoor recreation. I know our Speaker of the House has a lot of interest in outdoor recreation, and I bet that we have a pretty good chance in some of that coming to state parks. So we'll hope that some of that comes our way. In general, from what I hear from our Natural Resources Committee, or the legislators that serve on that committee, I think they're happy with the direction that we're going as an agency. I hear nothing but compliments. If any of you hear differently, please bring that to our attention so that we can address any issues that are out there. But in general, I hear a lot of really good, positive things from the legislators that I talk to. And one of the things that I always hope for is that if there is a problem out there with a legislator or a county commissioner or anyone, or if you are aware of something, that you'll give us a call and let us know so that we can at least try to solve whatever the issue might be. Or if it's a compliment, that you make us aware of that as well so that we can pat an employee on the back. Just like the California State Park Manager that Dave pointed out, we'll make sure to pat our park managers on the back for that awesome compliment. That's great. Anyway, I think it's going to be an interesting session, no doubt. They'll be scrambling for money, and keep our fingers crossed that everything goes well. Just a couple other really quick things. We had a significant donation that was made to one of our parks that I just wanted to mention. A volunteer, Erica Lockhart at Snow Canyon. She volunteered for 3 years. She was a camp host and a front office volunteer. And sadly, she passed away recently, unexpectedly. Turns out that she had established a trust several years back and requested that 20% of her assets be given to the donation account at Snow Canyon. That 20% amounts to about $100,000 that's going to be put towards Snow Canyon State Park. And I just wanted to make you aware of it, and also thank Erica and her family for her volunteerism and that donation. That's a significant donation. And also I feel a testament to Kristen and her staff for their work at Snow Canyon. But I thought that was really cool. Lastly, I think we've talked a lot about how busy our parks are. We think that's going to continue even into winter. Winter traditionally has been a slower season. And while generally it will be compared to spring, summer, and fall, I think it's going to be crazy busy compared to what it's traditionally been. That's what the trends are showing. I think our challenge is going to be in finding opportunities for those people that are looking for ideas of how to recreate outdoors. I know as one of those people that recreates outdoors in the winter with ice fishing, last year's ice fishing was busier than I've ever seen it. And I think this year is just going to be tremendous. But with ice fishing and snowshoeing, cross-country skiing, stargazing, fat bike, fat tire, mountain biking, there's so many things out there. And what I love is our employees are so creative and innovative. I'm certain that they're going to find new opportunities. And if any of you have any ideas, please throw them out there. But I think the busyness is going to continue, and that's a good problem to have. We'll certainly take it, and we welcome them in our state parks. That's all I had, other than just thank you all for your service on our board. We appreciate your input and everything that you do for our agency. And unless you have any questions or comments, that's all I had. Looks like Darren has a comment.
I just wanted to, again, thank you for all that you do during this time, much like Jeff did. Let me just mention the governor's election. We have a new governor-elect, obviously, and we are really excited at the prospect of working with Governor Cox. He is a real hands-on guy, for those of you that know him. Mm-hmm. And he knows us well. He loves state parks. And the early indications are that we will not see any changes with executive leadership here at the Department of Natural Resources. So we, of course, are hoping that will pan out and be that way. But we're really excited to work with him. And then the only other thing I'd mention, too, we talked about fees a little bit ago. I think as you're out and about in your areas, it's good to just remind folks that, as has been said, this is a real user-based agency. There's not a lot of taxpayer dollars that come into this agency. And I think just reminding the public that the improvements they see are from the dollars they spend in our state park system. And it's a real success story. So thanks.
Board members, are there any comments or questions for Jeff Rasmussen, our director?
Mr. Chairman, this is Corey. I'd just like to kind of go back to what Jeff was saying about planning and look at the challenges that our individual parks are facing. It seems like we're kind of going through a transition with a lot of different uses that we haven't seen in the past, and the challenges of juggling events versus normal uses. And I guess I would just challenge our individual park managers to maybe step back and take a look at what's happening and create a vision, work with the regional managers and kind of see what they see for the direction for our parks and what makes sense and where things need to go to manage things appropriately and implement Fred's vision with more people, more fun, more. We're it seems like kind of a crossroads where we're at right now with a lot of our parks, and maybe a good time to kind of reassess things.
Thank you, Corey.
Corey, thank you for that comment. I do agree with you, Corey. We are at a crossroads, and we are facing some challenging times and meeting some real difficult transitions. But I'll tell you, I haven't ever felt this confident in our leadership in state parks, not only on the park level, but here with Dave Harris and with Darren Bird and with Scott Strong and with our wonderful director, Jeff Rasmussen. I mean, I love the feeling of parks, the clear direction that I see from their leadership, their focused leadership. I love to see that. And I think we're heading in a really great place. And it's just fun to be a part of the board and to see all this kind of unfold. But I think we always should assess where we're at, where we're going, looking back and see where we can make improvements, and so that we can have even a more clear direction going forward. But I just love to see what's happening in our state parks. And what's crazy is everybody outside of Utah is seeing it too. Anyway, thank you for your comment, Corey. Chris Holler, are you ready to go? We're a little ahead of schedule, but that's okay. We're pretty much on time, about 10 minutes early. Let's turn some time over to Chris Holler for the OHV Fiscal Incentive Grant recommendations.
Yes, thank you, Chairman, and welcome board members, and thank you for allowing me this opportunity to present the quarterly October 2020 Fiscal Incentive Grants. I'm actually going to turn the time over to Rachel Toker. She, as most of you know, she was hired as the OHV Program Grant Coordinator or Administrator, and so the floor is hers.
Thank you, Chris. So as you guys have seen, it's in your packet. This quarter, we received 9 fiscal incentive grants, and the OHV Advisory Council actually recommended all of them. So what they do is they score 1 through 5, and anything that scores higher than 3.5, well, 3.5 and up is considered passing for recommendation. So with this is going to be our 6th quarterly grant, and then it looks as though they have requested $87,181. 6 of the applicants consisted mostly of county or cities. There were 2 nonprofits and then 1 government agency, which was actually Utah State Parks. So just to kind of go in a little bit more, most of these were most of these were for trail work. That was the majority of it. But we did also receive 2, 1 for education, 1 for other, and I believe 2 for access protection. So just to go a little bit more further into these ones, I'll just discuss a couple of them. I want to thank someone actually on the board for submitting a grant under San Pete County. It is under other. Yeah. So it's actually for 360 OHV trail mapping. So you guys might be familiar with this because this is a common one that we do receive, which is great. But his application consisted of creating 360 OHV trail mapping on approximately 115 miles of OHV routes around the Sandpitch Mountain Range. And then just to discuss on the other 2, some other ones is under education. This was from our nonprofit. It's actually for their Salt Lake Off-Road Expo. The objective is to educate visitors on proper trail etiquette, provide maps and links to legal trail systems, and educate users on various volunteer opportunities throughout the state. We've worked with OR for a while. They're a great nonprofit. I've actually been to the Salt Lake Off-Road Expo, and they allowed me to sit at the table with them. They're great guys. Another one from a nonprofit is actually for access protection. This is actually from Ride with Respect. He is actually a former council member of ours. He stepped down at our last council meeting because he exceeded his 8 years on the advisory council. So the funding is to assist with the Manti LaSalle National Forest Plan. He intends to provide quality input based on thorough analysis and field work for Manti LaSalle National Forest. On some other ones. For our trail work, I believe 6 of the applications consisted of trail work, which consisted of trail signage, fencing, trail maintenance supplies. There's also the purchase of a UTV and trailer to haul equipment and machines, kiosk installation, trail tools for volunteers. So that's kind of just the gist of it. But I believe this is our first quarter where the OHV Advisory Council actually recommended all of the applications. This one was all of these applications that we received were very thorough and well thought out. And our next meeting will take place, our next grant cycle closes on January 15th, but will be posted on our website on December 15th. So it'll be open for a month.
So since I have an application, I will recuse on this vote, but I think they're good projects.
Okay, thank you, Kevin.
Chair,
Okay, so we do.
we'll take all of them but the one from Sam Pete. So Kevin could vote on all of them but his specific one. But I had one question. It's on the ride with respect. The Manti LaSalle Forest Plan is way down the road in planning. I mean, way down the road. How much has this ride with respect interfaced already with the plan? Because I mean, it's out for public comment now. So I guess my question is, how beneficial can they be if the plan's that far along, right?
Can I make a comment on that? I'm not quite sure to what degree ride with respect. I haven't seen their full application, but I will say the Manti LaSalle Forest Plan, since that's in our county's region as well, there is the transportation section that still has quite a bit of input that is needed for the region. I haven't talked with Ride with Respect at this point about it, and I could reach out to them a little bit more, but there is still quite a bit of input that could come from the various user groups for the transportation section of the Forest Service Management Plan.
Board Garrett, I wanted to let you know that obviously the Division of Parks and Recreation has been involved as a cooperating agency, working with the Public Lands Policy Coordinating Office. I'm actually a cooperating agency representative specifically established for motorized use and access. And so I believe the overall Ride with Respect application is a way for nonprofit organization to rally OHV clubs from across the state to also submit public comments. And as Natalie referred to, yes, and yourself, yes, we are very much along the lines of the planning process within that Manti LaSalle revision, but this also brings awareness because, as most of us probably know, there's not a lot of public comment received when there's a process taking place. It's only after the fact when things are implemented, and then there's this big uprising that takes place and people want to know why they weren't involved. So part of this comes into account that hopefully RWR is able to rally the organizations around and to collectively submit a comment associated with those specific groups.
Thanks, Chris. And I had one other question on the sheet that you handed out on the very back last page, just under the total for requested OHV program funding. It says before reduction. So what did that mean?
So that was something that was left on there. So normally, if we have applications that the council, they're asking for funding for a specific item that they don't feel comfortable funding, whether or not that has to do with law enforcement or charging for a specific item. Sometimes they will reduce their asking amount so that we are not specifically funding that. So that before reduction just shows that there were no reductions. So that probably should have been removed actually, but so sorry for the confusion on that end. But yes, with this one, there was no alterations to increase or decrease anyone's potential funding from the council.
Good question. Thank you, Claudia. Any other questions or comments about recommendations?
Well, I don't feel like I have to recuse myself because I'm from San Pete County, knowing that Kevin already has. But I would like to make a motion that we approve number 1 on the list for funding.
Number 1, but what about all the others?
I want to just vote on number 1 so Kevin will have the opportunity to vote on 2 through 9. Does that make sense?
No, I'm a little confused.
He's recusing himself from number one because he was the applicant. So if I make a motion, we approve number one, so he can recuse himself and not vote on that, then it will pass. But I think as a board member, he should have the opportunity to vote on the rest of them, 2 through
Absolutely.
9. So that's why I was making that statement.
Okay, so we have a recommendation to approve number one. Do we have a second?
This is Corey. I would second Claudia's motion to approve number one.
Okay, so let's go person to person and get your approval then. Brent Boswell, did you approve of that motion?
Yes. Yes, I vote yes on that one.
And Corey Cram?
Yes.
Claudia?
Yes.
Alicia Colthorpe?
Yes.
And Natalie Randall?
Yes.
Okay, and Russ doesn't have a microphone, so we won't get his vote. But
Russ chatted yes.
But he wrote on chat that he's for it, so that's great. Thank you, Russ. Okay, so we're unanimous in that approval. Now we'll entertain a motion for the rest of the grant recommendations. And Kevin, you are free to be able to vote on the rest of them. Thank you, Claudia.
Board, completely. I move that we approve items 2 through 9 for funding.
Terrific. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I will second that.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kevin. Let's go person by person again. Brent Boswell.
I vote yes.
Corey Cram.
Yes.
Claudia Jarrett.
Yes.
Alicia Colthorpe.
Yes.
Natalie Randall.
Yes.
And Russ, do we have, and we have a yes from Russ as well. So that's, that voting is unanimous. Thank you, everyone. Let's move on to our next item. And that is for Scott Strong to talk to us about the out-of-state visitor day use fee increase. Did you already discuss that, Scott, or is there more that we need to talk about?
I think I jumped ahead on that one. So
okay. All right. Any questions on that? If not, we'll just move forward on to the next item, but there's no action to be taken on that. In terms of other business, I don't know of any other business. Do any of the board members have any comments or questions or any other business that we need to discuss? We already set our next board meeting date for February 18th of 21. So we've already handled the next item of business on the agenda. At this point, we have annual board training, and Amber is going to lead us in that, Amber Stubbings. We would like to excuse anyone who is not a board member. If you want to stay connected for this board training, just for your own personal interest, that's fine. But at this time, if you'd like to disconnect, if you don't want to be a part of the board training, then we'll let you go ahead and dismiss yourselves at this time. And thank you for connecting today and being a part of this meeting. Amber, we'll turn the time over to you for our board training. And for those of you who are disconnecting, would just like to wish you a happy Thanksgiving and happy holidays as we enter the holiday season. We're grateful for all that you do. Thank you, Amber. Time is yours.
Yes, thank you. So the intent of this presentation is the expectation of all executive boards in terms of, I can't think of the right term, boards of the governor. So as appointees of the executive branch, we are expected to keep refresh on the inner workings of requirements of the state of Utah. And so for our purposes today, that encompasses basically the Open Public Meetings Act, a refresher on Robert's Rules of Order, which you guys are all pretty good at already, but we'll just go over it again, and the grandma. And actually, in the slides that I sent to you before. I've made an addition and I'll send it out to you. Claudia had a really great question about how long should you keep documents? And that was an important addition to make. So at this time, I'm going to share my screen and then we're just going to, actually it would help if I brought that up instead of minutes first. There we go. Present. Just 1 second. Okay. Gonna present here. Now, my intent is to not bore you. I've tried to cycle out a lot of the things that don't apply to you as board members because you're not doing daily business for the department. So, you know, welcome to this board training. Now, as members of the Board of State Parks and Recreation, you are public servants and you are appointed by the governor. The roles and responsibilities are outlined in this link, which this link can take you to the handbook from the governor's office. And then this is also a video training, the open meetings training for public bodies. If you've got 18 minutes and you want to listen to them talk about how the work that we do is public, you can, but we'll just say we're public servants and it is in the best interest of the public that our work remain available, which is why we've done all this work to make sure that we are accessible. Utah Code 67-1-2.5 defines an executive board as any executive branch board, commission, council, committee, working group, etc., with limited membership and is created to operate for more than 6 months by the Constitution or by statute in our case. And we are a policy board. So we specifically work to enhance and maintain the policies of the Division of Parks and Recreation. That means you guys vote on things like last meeting's campground rules. You have direct effect on how the public engages with our agency through those rules and guidelines. The roles and responsibilities of the board member is outlined in that executive packet. Basically, we'd ask that you understand that you're a part of the executive branch of government and you're accountable to the people and the governor. You're responsible for direction, but not day-to-day staffing changes or protocols. So people aren't going to come to you for direct advice on, I don't even know if they should buy a state vehicle or something. Those are not roles of the board. In your appointment, you agree to make the board your priority and devote an appropriate amount of time, and you guys do. That's directly tied to the work that we do here. It's also an expectation, say for me, that I get you the information and the ample opportunity to comment on the work that you'll be doing through those agenda solicitations, through preparing you with substantive information with plenty of time to understand, research, and speak with your constituents. Prepare for, attend, and actively participate in board meetings. We understand that sometimes things come up, but for the most part, the expectation is that board members participate and show up to board meetings. Let's see. Represent your constituency. I think this is probably the biggest one. In terms of your appointment, you want to make sure that you're representing your area. Like, for instance, Claudia, you are at large, so you represent the entire state, but you guys should be talking. If we're going to make substantive changes at a board approval level, then talk to your constituents, talk to your chambers of commerce and your economic development teams, your outdoor recreation teams, businesses that might have input on changes that we're making. And it sounds like you guys already do that. I'm pretty new, but it does sound like you guys have reasonable connections. And so just maintain those lines of communication with your areas. know about the authority your board has in shaping public policy and respect that authority. So you all know that changing the time of check-in could affect people. That was something that we did at the last meeting. I think that's a very good example because it has a direct impact, but it also impacts state parks positively in revenue collection. If someone doesn't show up for their reservation, it totally makes sense to give them a reasonable amount of time to show up, but then change that around and open that spot up if they haven't shown up. And so that's a direct correlation. I think that's a good example. And maintain a good relationship with board members, board staff, administration, and the governor's office. Research issues and form reasonable opinions based on facts, and maintain a statewide perspective. Just because you have a representative area doesn't mean that your area, what's best for your area might not be best for the state and vice versa. So just try to maintain that when you're voting on issues. See, that was pretty easy. So we can move through this pretty quickly. Does anyone have any questions on your roles as a board member before I move on to Robert's rules?
A question, what about liabilities? We have this investigation taking place with misuse of funds or things like that. What liability do we have as board members if there's criminal actions by employees or things like that?
That's actually a really good question, and one that I'm not super well researched on. However, as policy board, you're not responsible for the ongoing workings of just employees. So I can't think of a circumstance that the board would have substantive action that would bring a liability, but say, I think, without going into too much detail, say someone wants to change a rule, a specific state parks rule in policy that would maybe allow them to negate a process for purchasing. That's not something you guys actually have the authority to do because that's actually at a higher level of statutory guidance. So I don't think the board can get into specific trouble. If a recommendation was made to the board, it would probably be at that representative's level. But it's always good to research your moves and your stances before you vote on something. That being said, I can't imagine anything policy related. You'd end up in a liable situation. We are all liable as humans to do our best. Claudia, are you coming in with a comment?
I was just saying that given those responsibilities that you went over, as long as we are within those responsibilities as a board member, I think we're covered under the State Immunity Act. I don't think unless we're negligent or doing something personally, I don't think we have any worries about liability.
Right. And actually, Kevin, accusing yourself from the one vote on the OHV grant, that's exactly a perfect example. Recognizing where you might have input in your personal life or in your personal best interests, and just I think that's probably the closest to a liability. So just continue to operate that way. And I think we do a pretty good job here keeping tabs on your interests and who you're representing. So I don't think it'll ever be an actual problem to discuss. But that is a really good question, and I will follow up. I will check some offline material, and if I see anything that points to a liability, I will let you guys know.
Thank you.
Yes. So going on to Robert's Rules of Order. When talking about Robert's Rules of Order, the most important thing to remember is that you want to protect the minority while operating under the wishes of the majority. So, and create an environment that is conducive to change, representation, and respect. So, I think we all do a really great job, and Chair Murray has done a good job of recognizing and allowing time for questions and asking if there's discussion points. But in our operation, we want to respect any minority. If there's, I don't have a lot of experience with this board yet, so all of mine are at the judicial level, and I don't want to give you guys those examples because it can get kind of tedious. But if there's a really hot topic up for debate that has public comment and affects one part of the state more than the other, or doesn't affect any part of the state other than one small part, we want to consider that, but we also want to take the state as a whole. And that's basically the intent of that. So board members are always entitled to speak and propose motions. They should be done respectfully. The speakers of the interruption, if there's going to be an interruption, so the chair can recognize its validity. So say something's getting really heated and it's about fee increases, and something's getting really heated and there's lots of back and forth debate. You should always ask the chair for recognition before interrupting. I think that's something that we all do, and our chair does a very good job of seeking alternative motions or discussion. Restate motions after they've been seconded. This is actually probably my favorite thing in Robert's Rules of Orders, because sometimes things go so fast and it's really helpful to know who said something and exactly what is said, because then we can all agree to what's going on. We don't have a ton of heated stuff going on, so it's not the biggest deal. But if that happens, it's always helpful. I think this is all pretty self-explanatory. Close the discussion, put motions to a vote, announce the result of the votes immediately. A tie vote would come from the chair, and it would require a majority of those voting. Avoid entering any controversy or interfering with legitimate motions. So again, we don't have a ton of controversial topics that we go into, but if we do, it's always appropriate to avoid interfering, let a motion stand, and then if you'd like to make an amendment, often called a friendly amendment, you can do so after the second has been made. So it would go, I motion to propose whatever. I second that motion, and then someone could come in and during the discussion, I motion to amend, friendly amendment, et cetera, et cetera. Do you guys have any questions on that? No? Okay. Expedite board business in every way compatible with the rights of board members. You can allow brief remarks on motions that are not debatable, advise board members how to take action, a proper form of motion, or order proposed routine action without a formal vote. For example, minutes approved as presented. I think we do a really good job of this. And I also think that we cheat a little bit in the best possible way with the proposed motions in advance, which of course I want you guys to know, because that is a life hack that we've developed. It is always appropriate. You are the board, you are the carrying members of these motions. If you disagree with a proposed or suggested motion that's provided from the administrative office, please alternate. You do not have to go with that. It's not a script, it's just a suggestion. Any questions on that? No, okay. When in doubt, do what seems fair and equitable. Respect the wishes of the majority while protecting the minority. This is basically just a refresher screen. You're all very good at it. Basically, everyone is equal on this board. No one is no one is technically a minority member, but everyone has equal rights. The simplest, clearest, and most expeditious way is considered proper as long as it does not violate the rights of the board members. So for example, the agenda stands as approved, or stands approved as presented. That doesn't infringe anyone's right to dispute the agenda or make amendments. Does anyone have any questions? I'm sorry, I tried to add like fun things, but there's really just nothing fun about this. This is probably going to be the best, and I can just send this as a printout, how to suggest something and whether or not it's debatable and what kind of voting it requires. It's probably really small on your screen. So for example, to adjourn a meeting, I move the meeting be adjourned. It's not an interruptible. A second is required. It's not debatable, and it requires a majority vote. And it's just kind of a helpful cheat sheet that I always used at the courts, and I thought it might be helpful here. Any questions on that? No. Okay. Moving on to Utah Open Meetings Act. This is probably the most significant portion of our show because everything we're doing is virtual now, and we've had to change our operations. So Utah Code 52-101, all of it. I mean, there's like 12 or 14 parts to it. That all agencies and political subdivisions are conduct of the people's business. We are representatives of the public. That's the intent. All of our actions must be open and conducted. The deliberations must be conducted openly and with room for public comment. We are a public body. We are a policy body. And we are appointed by the governor. Any questions on that before I move into the more substantive part? Okay. The good news for you guys is I do all the work. So you guys just have to remember that it's a public meeting, basically. A quorum has to be present in order for it to be considered a public meeting. And in our case, the statute actually says 4 of 9. I think that, and I asked for clarification from our attorney general, and he said that it's true, it's 4. I think that is on top of our chair. Like our chair still has to be there for a tiebreaker. So chair plus 4. The meeting has to be convened by an authorized person. So in this case, it would be the chair or the vice chair. If the vice chair is also unable, then someone could ask for the convening of a meeting, but I think it would still have to be in writing, as like the chair or the vice chair would have to consent to that. And it has to be over something that you guys have jurisdiction over. So it would have to be state parks. If SITLA wanted to convene a meeting of you guys over some of their topics, that's not a public meeting. That doesn't count. Things that do count would be like this workshop. This is a public meeting. Executive sessions are very rare in policy boards, and site visits and traveling tours are included. Meetings conducted in person or by electronic means, and that can be telephone, email, text message. That could be on Facebook. It could be video chat. It really doesn't matter. If a quorum is present and you're talking about state parks business, that is a public meeting. And a bona fide chance or social gathering is not. So you meet 3 other people at the grocery store, and you just happen to be at the grocery store. That's not a public meeting. There's no way that you could have announced that 24 hours in advance. It's a bona fide chance meeting. Closed meetings are really rare. They would be to discuss the merits or professional competence or health of an individual. Obviously, individuals are entitled to their privacy, so we would be able to close the meeting for that. It's probably a very rare circumstance. Strategic discussions for legislative, administrative, or litigious happenings, that could be a reason, but often our legislative strategy wouldn't really happen at this level. I also don't think we'll ever experience collective bargaining, but sometimes we may discuss land transfers with other agencies, so that might be a time to close a meeting. Any questions on this part? Okay. This is basically all the stuff that I do. I highlighted the stuff that you guys care about, but these are some of the things that we do behind the scenes. So we provide public notice on the public notice website, which includes date, location, time, how to participate, public comments, and the agenda and any additional handouts. An annual public notice, and this is why we actually voted on the schedule. An annual public notice of our meetings should be reasonably attempted to be posted. That doesn't mean that they're not subject to amendment in real time. We can always change dates as they near, but it is proper to post an annual schedule once per year. Posting must be electronic and physically. So we do have a cute little sign that I made on the door. So people know that there is a meeting happened here. And then here's where you guys come in. All aspects of the meeting, including discussions, motions, and deliberations, shall be open to the public. That includes offline conversations. That includes text messages when you're like, hey, vote for this or whatever. That's all public record, and that's part of the public meeting. Written minutes and audio, that's all me. I post those as quickly as I can. I think my personal rule is 3 days, but it's 30 days to get those minutes up, and approved minutes must be posted to the public within 3 days of approval. So I have to get last month's minutes posted before like Tuesday next week. Meetings may be independently recorded as long as the recording does not interfere with the conduct of our meeting. So if we were in person, people could show up and record it and we can't tell them no. A recording is not required to be kept of an open meeting that is at a site or on a traveling tour. So when we go visit parks, we don't have to record them. We probably do just because it's helpful for the secretariat, which is me. Next one that matters to you guys is a public or specified body may transmit an electronic message to another person when not convened in an open meeting with the following caveats. Electronic messages, and we'll get into this a little bit further, concerning public or specified body business are public records, even when they're on private devices. So if you're sending a text message to somebody and it's about what's going on today, then that's a public record. And a meeting is defined to include electronic communications when a quorum is present. So that could be email if all parties are, or at least 4 of you are participating, then that's a meeting. Any questions? I saw Dave's hand go up, but it wasn't a question. Okay. Okay, so then I went and checked, and it looks like we did adopt an administrative rule, or, we said as a body that we were willing to conduct online meetings. Electronic meetings used to not be allowed by open public meeting, but in the last 2 years, it has been more and more regular. And then the 2020 legislature amended that to be a thing. So we just have to acknowledge that that's a thing that we're willing to do. However, the notice has to be consistent with regular meetings, and space and facilities still have to be provided at an anchor location. So we still have a spot for people to come and make public comment during the meeting. As note, we didn't receive any public comments. I would have interrupted any action proceedings if we had. And a person may be removed from a meeting if they're willfully disrupting that to an extent that we can't conduct business. So if we have a really heated topic and a member of the public comes, they could be removed if their behavior was inappropriate. I don't foresee that happening, but we do have a protocol. And specifically, if we're here at the DNR building, we have security for that purpose. They would help us with that. And violations, this one's important. If you knowingly violate any of the Open Meetings Act, it could be a Class B misdemeanor. So that means if you're trying to hold meetings online, like via email is usually the most common, and you're trying to get around, like, I don't know, some sort of action and Jeff and I don't know about it, and it's not public, and you guys knowingly do that, but it's to take substantive action for the board, that could be in violation. I don't see any of you fine folks doing that. So just don't. Just remember this face. Don't do it. And then we get into grandma. Does anyone have any questions about the Open Meetings Act specifically? I don't see hands. I see a lot of let's move this along and get towards lunch. Okay. So, and then grandma is pretty substantive. There are something like 170 pages of law when it comes to government records access management. For your purposes, because you're not actually state employees, I can boil it down a little bit more. So basically, we're going to talk about the intent, what is and isn't a record, and how long you have to keep those records. Anything else is kind of fluff. The biggest things I want you guys to know is that we have records officers, and both at the state level and at each department. So there are people that handle our records. For purposes of the board, I'm probably going to be a repository for a lot of your stuff. So you don't necessarily have to keep everything. And a really good way to make sure that you can keep your inbox clear is to just CC me on stuff, or Jeff, or Dave or Scott or someone from DNR. But the intent of grandma is to, again, the public's business is the public's business, and they have right to our records. What's best for the public is that we do our business openly and fairly. The right to privacy in relation to personal data is a thing. So like if this doesn't even really matter to you guys because you're not state employees, but if you were here and you were talking about a personal matter about a health concern or something, and it was part of a public record, that would be omitted should that record be sought out. Anything personal would be omitted. Like they're not going to post your personal address. They're not going to post anything about a private appointment that you had. They're only going to provide information specific to a records request. Does that make sense? Because a lot of people get freaked out about grandma, but there are state records officers that make sure that your information is still being protected. You still have a reasonable right to privacy. And I just wanted to make sure you guys know that. This whole page is pretty much self-explanatory. That's why it's all bold. The intent is to specify conditions under which the public interest is, which the public has interest, prevent abuse of confidentiality. So, no secret documents outlining crazy purchases of things that, no $400 hammers, no Watergate business. Provide guidelines for both disclosure and restrictions, and those are based on the equitable weighing of pertinent interests, which are consistent with nationwide standards of information practices. So I hope that all makes sense. Seeing a couple nods. So when records officers assess, they assess the content, not the form. So not all emails, not all presentations, not all Word documents. It's based on what's actually inside those. So if someone made a records request dealing with rule amendment or like rule changes, it could be email, it could be text message, it could be Facebook posts, it could be anything. It doesn't really matter what the content is or the form. It's only the content. Does that make sense? Okay. And then I have a blank page. I don't know why I have a blank page. Okay. This page is real simple. I just highlighted violation of this subsection. Everything's a Class B misdemeanor. So don't hide documents, but you also won't create a ton of them. So don't destroy, don't hide anything substantive about movement of this board. The next page, I think, is the one that's really helpful. No. Where'd it go? Come on, guys. Okay. So public records are generally financials, correspondence, emails, texts, letters, carrier pigeons, records of property transfer. So these are all examples of what is or is not a record. And so this is the part that's really probably the most helpful to you. If someone texts you and they're like, hey, can I get a ride to the board meeting? It's not a record. No one cares. They're just excited that you're showing up and yay. Yay, removing emissions, etc. If someone says, hey, I have some concerns about these OHV grants, let's talk about them. That text message then becomes a record. And it gets a little bit stagnant on whether or not the records officers have access to your messages because you're not a state employee and it's not a state provided cell phone. They can subpoena for a record. However, you would probably end up having to send a screenshot. So if there was a conversation like that, and someone knew about it and made a records request about that conversation, we would probably have to get that from your physical device. So, just try and keep those things limited.
So Amber, this is the question that I had specific in this area because we receive requests from constituents, and like just a week ago, we got one from a Corey Young about concessions. We've had some by Friends of the Antelope Island. We get stuff all the time, and we've just sort of forwarded it on to Jeff and the staff there to respond. But it came to us, and it is on our personal phones. And we have communications back from Scott's response to Corey, sent it out to the board so we knew. So this is all board stuff. And I guess my question is, do we all have to keep it at some point on our phones in some kind of a folder, and for how long? I see emails from Jeff, for instance, that have all this confidentiality language at the bottom. I guess this is where I'm confused and wanted more of a discussion so the board had some direction on these emails specifically. Your emails to us about meetings and agendas and my communication to you about the minutes. Is that all? It's an email, it's board business. Do I have to keep all that, and for how long?
The short answer is no. If it's in my system, then that is a public record and I can access that and manage it for you. So as long as those, like say from Friends of Antelope Island, if that gets forwarded on to me or Jeff or Scott or whoever, that public record is now safely within our retention policy here. So those kinds of things are actually fine. I don't lose sleep over them. And I don't think our AG would either, or our records retention, because we have, it's called, I actually pulled it up. And I could share this. I'll send you this. We have proprietary records software in our G Suite that will hold on to things that are actionable items. So if it's specifically not created by us and you forward it to us, then it's in the system and we can save it forever.
So take a step further. So is that a practice the board should do when we get these kind of specific things from constituents that just kind of are shotgunned out to the board to just send it on up to you so the record is maintained by your department?
It is a good practice.
But wonder if some of us in the board actually responded to Mr. Young or to the Friends of Antelope Island or personally responded as a board member. Do we have to keep that communication as well?
Yes, and the short answer for that is most things are 7 years. The easiest part about text messages is those don't often hold weight for much and they don't get requested. However, I wouldn't recommend deleting substantive text messages that are actionable. So if it's a question about, hey, is the board talking about this? That's already a public record because we're going to talk about it and these meetings are available. But if they were saying, if someone said, hey, I saw that you were going to vote on a campground amendment, and that's not in our best interest, and then you respond, that would be best practice to capture and send to us. And then if it's sent to us, then it's a record. Does that make sense? But you can also keep it for up to 7 years. You're shaking your head. So maybe we should have brought Marty. The intent isn't to bog down your systems. It's also not to bog down and make you stress out about actions you take on behalf of the board. Because most of the stuff that you're going to do is subject to Public Meetings Act. I can't imagine that there's a ton of things that you have to actually. Sorry, I'm also getting text messages. I want to make sure they're not relevant to this to this training.
I just know from other situations that I've been in, a grammar request can come from anywhere. And sometimes if you've retained those things, those communications, they're subject to grandma and you have to copy them and send them as part of the grammar request. So, what do you advise the board relative to keeping emails, keeping communication? Should we just really get rid of it immediately? So if that grammar request happens to come, we can just indicate that we don't have that anymore. It's just such a touchy area, and anymore there's such a litigious environment out there. I'm thinking of some of the land purchases that we've done, some of the land transfers. If there was any private communication or something on that line, we keep it, and now there's a grammar request for all the information and documentation related to that. We got to produce it. So I do like some advice, maybe some guidelines subject to this whole grammar thing for us as a board, what to keep, what we may have to keep, particularly if we've responded personally, individually, as a board member to a constituent.
Yes. So the next slide that passed, I don't know where I'm getting this feedback from. The next slide talks about transitory, administrative, and executive correspondence. So I think you're talking about specifically executive correspondence. And regardless of format or transmission, those should be saved. Now, let me just make sure. And yeah, those should be saved permanently. And so that would be where if it's a comment about a land transfer, I think that's a good example. And I've not yet experienced one of those with the board, so I don't know what those maybe comments might look like, but that should be captured and just forwarded to either you could send it to Jeff or you could send it to whoever our PIO is to forward on to our records retention office. And they'll keep note, and they have a pretty robust system for identifying. And so in those instances, then you don't even have to respond to the grandma because the records officers will. So if it's executive and I would think that would be rulemaking, land transfer, maybe legislative negotiations. Potentially, I don't know if the board has a hand in legislative negotiations, but those could all be things that you would just capture forward, and that way you don't have to keep it on your personal cell phone if it's a text message. And I can get more procedural information on how to capture to provide metadata. That's not a thing that's very frequent. In fact, I asked our records officer about it pretty recently, and she's never captured metadata from a text message. It's never been necessary. They've always worked off of screenshots. Does that help, Claudia?
Well, I'm just thinking that maybe just as a general practice, anytime we get certain requests that come to the board and we can see that it wasn't sent to your offices, that we have a procedure of forwarding it to the division so that they can handle it. I mean, I don't feel comfortable in responding to some of those anyway because I don't know the answers.
Right.
But if we make a personal comment back, then maybe that communication also needs to be indicated to you. So you all know that as a board member, we made a certain response, made a certain comment relative to that constituent, and you become the repository and not our personal emails. Maybe that is kind of a practice. I don't know.
And we can address that in board bylaw. It looks like Natalie's going to make a comment. Sorry. My goal for 2021 is that I want to create a series of bylaws which would include policies and procedure relevant to GRAMA and Open Meetings Act and everything else. And so that would be something that we could actually address in a series of like very identifiable steps. But right now, I don't think it's a huge issue. And I'm going to make a note here. So for right now, I would say,
Amber?
Yes, sir.
This is Darren. Hey, Marty just happened to step in during this discussion, so maybe we could let him respond.
Marty, do you have time for us? I cannot see anything. You guys got so small.
So I presume, is this a Parks Board meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I was just walking by and looked in here and Darren like waved me over and told me to walk in, and judging from the few people who are here, I was assuming it was. As I understand it, the question is as state employees, if we receive texts from the public, emails, whether it's board members. Yeah.
Because our
whether
board members are not state employees.
All right. Well, they're still subject to the Governmental Records Access Management Act and to record keeping. And so there's schedules for how long we maintain different types of records, which I can't, tell you right now what all those are, but I would say is any texts, emails, electronic communications, or at least that are in a digital format, is you got to save them. And how you do that, I'd let you talk to maybe the folks that know more about that. To me, on my text, I just don't delete any of them that are work related. I just leave them on my phone. I don't know if that's what you want to hear, but I mean, you are the way grandma and record keeping and all those things is it's not just employees, it's people who working for or with the state.
Yes, sir. So the question at hand is if a board member receives something from a constituent and then they forward that on to it, like via text message, especially because metadata is a thing. If they receive a substantive discussion point and they forward that on to, say, Jeff or Scott from State Parks, is that then captured, and do they have to take additional steps to protect that record?
I mean, it is captured on the one hand, but what's going to do is they're going to come as some kind of grandma request that's going to want, your data or your information. And if you don't know where it is anymore, it gets a little more complicated. I mean, if you've got ability to put it on a drive, it's just when we get a request for, records, we've got to somehow be able to find that information and be able to go through it.
Right. And so the three main categories are transitory, administrative, and executive, right? So
Yes.
Transitory, you can just delete. It doesn't matter. That's
my understanding.
Right. So administrative could be kept up to 7 years. Most of that for the board's purposes should be kept here anyways, inside the state system, because that should be as a matter of course with staff from DNR, and that should already also be in our records.
If Parks has a way of you send it to them, they then store it, and you have a way to search it, then I think that would be fine. We just got to make sure that it just doesn't go to Jeff to his personal email and we lose track of who it came from.
Right. and I'm pretty good at maintaining those communications.
Or in a location where we know where they are and we know how to access them by name, then that will suffice.
Right. So I think the only question we would really have is if a text message from a constituent and it's actionable or executive, how do we retain that forever? Because that's the requirement.
You're asking a technological question.
Exactly.
I'm the wrong generation to be answering that question.
I reached out to
think
someone.
we're going to find some way that we could either, it could be forwarded, it could be copied, that we can just get it in place where it's stored.
Right. And we could undergo here as a board, if that's a concern, maybe once per year reporting any substantive records that you've received, and I could collect those just so that you can purge any information that you would like to get off of your personal devices. And again, I could address that in a future board bylaw. My understanding is that most stuff that you guys do is going to come through the department and so is captured as a record. So it's not the biggest concern that we have. Does that sound right?
It's coming through their state email. DTS, everybody has those. And there's none that.
Board members do not.
None of your board members have a state email address? No. Okay.
No.
Then we need to figure out another way to keep it.
Right. But because me or Jeff or, someone from the department is involved in those communications, as long as offline communications get forwarded to us, they are captured.
Okay.
Does that sound right and correct, Marty?
I think so, as much as I'm following what you're saying, but I just say to the extent we get board members, and it applies to me too. If I'm using my own personal phone and I get a text from a constituent, I can't delete it. I shouldn't delete it anyway. And so we just need to find a way to capture those and save them somewhere where they can be searched in a database. Whether you do that annual basis, a monthly basis, or a per occurrence, is every time you get an email, if there's a way to go ahead and pass that information along.
Yeah,
but
I can identify a procedure.
I don't know how they always find out, but it's people who know different kind of communications, and then when they don't show up, they question it. And once you don't have that information, it really kills your credibility, whether it's in litigation or anything else, is that you're trying to hide things.
Yeah.
And that's the appearance it creates, is we're trying to hide. And so I mean, there's following the law because we need to, and that's good enough reason, but the consequence can be pretty significant.
Right.
Because it could be entirely innocent, and yet it looks like we may be trying to cover things up.
Right. So the directive at this point, and I talked to someone at records retention, they said, if you have a question on it, or if it's a concerning document, make sure it's coming to someone here, and it will be captured, and we'll make sure to save it forever for you. And that's only for executive correspondence. So that would be on land transfers, and that would be if it affects substantive change. If someone texts you and they're like, hey, what's going on with this? And you just say, I'm going to refer you to Jeff. That's not something that we have to save forever.
Oh, the same as where are we going to go to lunch today, or where are we going to meet you? Things like appointments and scheduling, as long as they don't have any substantive conversation in them.
Right.
They don't need to be saved.
Right. Does that help you, Claudia?
Yeah, I think that probably rule of thumb right now is forward everything that we get, mostly. That probably requires a response from the division anyway. But if we do anything personally, as a board member back to a constituent, we better save it.
Yeah. So, and that does actually lead me into my 2021 goal is I do want to create bylaws, and that would address policy and procedure for the board, and give you an itemized step of what to do. I don't think in terms of liability, I don't think we have a ton going on. So this is a really one-off kind of conversation. These aren't the kinds of things that we get every single day. So that this will be a goal for me to make a very robust, what do I do when this happens kind of guideline. So I hope that helps.
Well,
And
in
then,
this COVID, we've talked about how positive things have been at the parks, and obviously they have, but there could be one that's angered or reaches out and has a specific issue. And if we personally make a comment back to them, then I just felt like we needed some clarification. So I have to keep that and keep that for 7 years somewhere on my phone. Or does every disgruntled park person, even though they reached out to me personally, I have to forward to the division? It, just a little clarification, procedure-wise or practice-wise, I think would help the board. It just a different environment now with COVID and so many people in the parks and so much going on and a lot of great things. But occasionally there could be the angry one personally. So I'm just
I think that's actually considered business related. That would be more under the administrative anyway. So it's not like it has to be kept forever. And again, you would probably want to make us aware of it so that it could be addressed. If it was someone that needed a parks pass or someone that didn't like the 2 p.m. checkout or something else, you would want to forward that on to us anyway so we could address that from a customer service standpoint. So at the end of that interaction, like even if you're responding to them personally and saying, I'm sorry that this is happening and I definitely want to address this and these are my personal thoughts on the matter, I'm going to send this to parks so that they can help you come to a resolution. I think that's how that would come to us. And it could be a forwarded text to Jeff, or it could be a screenshot and send it to me or Dave. So that we can get those out. And then that's then captured and you could delete it. I will double check with records retention, but they were pretty confident that as long as we had it here in our system, they weren't super worried about it.
Claudia, this is Bob.
Yeah, I think just the forwarding stuff. So if we do stuff individually and personally, that we have a responsibility to keep that. But if we do that, but capture it and send it to the division, we're probably better off that way. I just wanted that discussion resolved. Thanks, Bob.
I'm really glad that you brought these questions up, Claudia, because I think they do involve all of us. For instance, the one email that we received a week ago that went to all the board members. What if all the board members individually responded back to that person with different answers? That makes us look very disconnected. So I think we need to just plan on the board chair sending that message to Jeff and asking what's the most appropriate way to respond, and we're going to draft up some kind of a procedure so that we're all in the clear on this and we're not giving information that we don't know about, or that we're all giving different information that is not complete. So be looking for something that will provide some guidelines on that. And I think we need to keep what we can and send most of what we receive to Jeff or to Scott or somebody so it is a public record on their computers.
Yes. And then we can go back to, I tried to get fancy and then it makes scrolling really hard. What other things are public records? Because I do think that there are some things that people don't think about. And Twitter is public anyway. So if you tweet something, anyone can see it. And if they know who you are, that's going to be a greater issue than just in grandma. So if you tweet something about, the board's voting on this, it's going to be a much needed change and we're so excited about it, that's a public record and it could be entered into a grandma request. If you've got a private Facebook account and you're talking about board changes, that is a public record and it could be grandma. And so then your entire Facebook account could be scrutiny. So if you're just posting a lot of fall soup recipes, you should share those soup recipes with me because I really love soup. And B, your personal profile could become a public record, even if it's private. So those are the kinds of things that if you get into a comment chat on a photo of a state park with someone who owns a bike rental business and they want into that park, And you're like, well, here, let me help you get with Mike so you guys can figure out if there's an opportunity for an RFP there. That's a public record. I assume that people in your communities know that you speak for state parks. And so your personal stuff could become a record. If you receive an email from a constituent, that's, like we've discussed, a public record. If I email you asking you what you want for lunch, that's not really going to be a public record. That's that's transitory. You can delete it unless you respond back to me that, yes, I'd love a burger, but I also wanted to talk about this rule change. All of a sudden that becomes a public record. Or yes, I'm going to get the veggie burger with no fries and no ketchup. And then I also want to provide this public comment that we received, or this comment that we received from a constituent. Then all of a sudden, and that's on me, that's going to be something that I'm going to retain, but it is a public record. So something could start off innocuous and transitory and then become later on. So then everyone's going to know that you don't like ketchup on your veggie burger, et cetera, et cetera. Does that part make sense? Like something innocuous becoming a public record? Okay.
I think a good rule of thumb is not to be very careful about even communicating anything on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook. I think the good rule of thumb is to stay away from those completely.
May I add just one thing? I mean, wildlife of this years, and I do it myself, is just don't write down anything you wouldn't want to see on the front page of the newspaper.
Right.
It's sometimes boring because we all like to be a little sarcastic with some people and who we're teasing, but it comes back, it's taken out of context, and it can look bad. And so whenever I write, I always think, would I be comfortable with the explanation I'm providing, with the words I'm using, if I saw them on the front page of the newspaper and they were attributed to me? Oh, that's something I've used. But we continually have employees, DNR, that will sometimes say things that they didn't think anybody else was ever going to read or hear. And they're embarrassing in the end.
Yeah.
Right. And we have a lot of things going on in the public atmosphere that are worthy of comment, but might not necessarily reflect what's going on at the agency or the parks. And so comments on those should be at least considered. I mean, you still have the right to free speech. But just consider how that might be interpreted by the media if someone decided to comment or capture your comment. Again, share your soup recipes. I love them. Those are not public records, and I am a fan of soup. If you receive a carrier pigeon with a scroll decreeing that today is a state holiday and it's from the governor and somehow he just got a lot of pigeons, that's not going to be a likely scenario, but it's still a public record. You received signals about a change at a park. I don't know how we would capture that, but it would be a public record. So it doesn't matter what the format is, only the content. Any questions on what is and is not a public record?
However, I will say that if you can at all possible, it's almost better to call the person rather than put it in text format or a letter format, because that's harder to prove that you had a conversation. However, have to be careful if you're out in public, because now with cell phones, recording everything with a cell phone, a camera, have to be a little careful there too. But maybe person to person. I appreciated Scott actually calling that person personally and having a communication with him. I think that goes so much further than a text anyway. But I'm assuming he probably has to record that he had that conversation and probably has to highlight the points he made, I guess. But sometimes that's even better. So maybe person to person, a call is, I didn't see that on the list, so maybe a better way to go as well.
Calls the phone record itself, the time, the phone number to phone number, those are public records, and those would be captured unless it's a recorded phone call. And some phone calls are, like if you call I can't think of who it is. I think it's not our fleet management, but state travel. They record conversations. So if I called them and I said, hey, I need to book this travel, and it's for my board, but we're going to Vegas and we're going to party it up and it's going to be all on the state's time. That's a recorded conversation, and that would be a record. Not like we don't really record a lot of conversations here, I don't think. And it would have to be subject to both parties' consent, because that's a rule in Utah. So yeah, the date, time, duration, and participants of the phone call are recorded, but the actual content of the phone call isn't recorded. Marty, you look like you have a comment.
Quick thing as we talk about phone calls and recordings is anybody you talk to on the phone can be recording it. It's perfectly legal. In Utah, it's one party to a conversation.
Oh, it is one party.
A lot of states, it's all parties, but Utah, it's just one. And
okay.
So I say it's always good to kind of be circumspect in what you say, whether it's verbally or in writing or elsewhere.
Assume you're being captured in some way. Always good rule of thumb. And then we already talked about transitory, administrative, and executive. This is a part that I wanted to show you guys. I hope it will show you. This is what is it taking you to another website? If I pull this up, can you see the open records page? Or are you still cool? So this is where people go when they want to find out more about what's going on with government records. There's a whole portal. You can go in, you click state agencies. It's actually kind of cool. So we could say, we'd go down to Department of Natural Resources, and we could request records. And then, we have an entire process, but like it goes to back at the department level, and then he kind of filters things out and asks for what's actually needed. There are timelines that are required. They can request expedited timelines, and they can request shorter, like longer timelines. And we have the opportunity to respond and say that's not feasible. You're requesting a lot more than we can do in 3 or 9 days, or whatever the timeline that they've requested is. And the website also links them to administrative rules, annual reports, budget, so that sometimes their question can be answered without even needing to request records. And it's just kind of a neat thing. If someone asks you about it, it's good that we have this. Now, how can the board act as a good steward of public records? I always just say try your best. No one's going to be perfect 100% of the time. A lot of things are captured one way or another. They're not written to make your job harder as a servant to the state of Utah. They're not written to encourage you to try and circumnavigate the system. And like what Marty said, this is the same thing. When sending a document or a text message, ask yourself, will this get my face in the newspaper? Most times it's going to be no. And if it is, ask yourself what you're doing, because what are you doing that your face is going to be in the newspaper? Hopefully it's for something good. They benefit open government, and open government is how we continue to advance as a society, I think. If you wanted to help me, if something is specifically board related and it's a document that you've created, you can give it a date and always start with the year and then the month, and then actually title what that is. So in this case, I would title it 2020-11-12. And that is because when I save it in my folder that I keep for public records, it'll be in order of date. So if someone asks me about a specific time recording, then I can go back and I can be like, oh yeah, Claudia made that outline of some comments she received, and it was back in May, and oh yeah, I can just pull that right up. And then that grammar request took me 30 seconds. So just smart naming file conventions is helpful. And I found this really funny graphic, which I found hilarious for committee because I've spent a lot of time on committees. The committee decided that the file naming convention will start with the date in order of month, year, day, then a space, then the temperature at the airport, and the hat size of the nearest squirrel. To be perfectly honest, it was a long meeting and we probably didn't do our best work towards the end. So I've been in those meetings. And that's basically what I've got. Do you guys have any questions about grandma that me or Marty could, Marty might have left, that we can answer?
So bottom line, we can all delete the Corey Young email, correct?
Yeah, we should have it recorded.
Well, Amber, thank you so much. This is very helpful information and a great reminder of our responsibilities as board members. Any other questions from the board? Okay. Amber, thank you. We appreciate all that you do.
My pleasure.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're done with our meeting today. Thank you so much for your participation. As you enter the holidays, be safe and have fun and stay healthy. Happy holidays. Happy Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas, and we'll see you in February. I will take a motion to adjourn this meeting at this time.
This is Kevin. I'll motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Kevin. And do we have a second?
This is Corey. I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Corey. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate your participation. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.